Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of We Are Finally podcast. I'm Rasen.
I'm Zach.
I'm Matt.
Hey, we got someone from Twitter to join in on the fun. So, how you doing tonight, Matt?
I'm good. How are all of you?
Cold. It snowed finally, and actually a lot has happened since we last were on. Zach, how are you doing?
I'm alright.
So yeah, we decided that we'd just finally record an episode. It's been like a month or so, and we missed out on a lot of big news. But instead of being cool and just going over everything, we just thought we'd talk about what we wanted to and stuff. So I mean, we've all been playing and watching stuff recently. So Matt, what have you been playing and or watching or reading or consuming?
Well, I guess before I was kind of playing a ton of Metal Gear, and I got up to Peace Walker, but kind of got bored with that game.
Yeah.
It's not bad, but
I'm the only one
and
who likes that game as much as I do.
I
Oh
miss
yeah.
crawling.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
But no, for the most part, I've been playing a ton of Xenoblade X. That game has taken up my life. It's really good. It's a lot of fun.
How have you? Did you play the first one?
I've played most of it, but I kind of just fell out of it due to just like not having enough time because it's a long game.
Yeah, isn't this one like almost to an absurd degree longer too?
I have no idea how long it compares, but it's like way bigger,
Oh,
like a
okay.
lot.
And you didn't feel like you missed anything out moving from the first one without finishing it to the second one? Because I'm kind of in that same boat where I kind of want to start Xenoblade X, but I haven't beaten Xenoblade.
How far are you?
In Xenoblade,
Yeah.
uh, maybe 6, 7 hours.
Oh yeah. See, I mean, at that point, you might as well just go over. Like, I think the original Xenoblade is still worth playing, but like, I think just at 6, 7 hours, you kind of understand most of the basic systems, so you're pretty good. Because Xenoblade X is really bad at teaching you what to do. Like, I just didn't understand the game as much, and I had played a lot of Xenoblade,
So
but
you think it's more of like a play the other one first, more so for gameplay reasons than actual story reasons?
oh yeah, the story's not really connected at all.
Okay. I
Like,
wish I had a Wii U. Rip. That game actually looks pretty damn cool.
it is. I was surprised. I think the story is really a letdown, though.
I've heard that. I remember when I heard when that game came out, people were like, "It's the Metal Gear Solid 5 of the Xeno games," and I was like, "That's a statement." But like, yeah, I've heard like it kind of favors a lot more of the questing and exploration and the setting over the actual main story.
Hmm.
Okay. Do you
Yeah,
think it works though, or do you think that's kind of a letdown?
it's kind of both because, like, I know you're like joking about that, but it kind of is the MGS5 of Xeno series. It's like not for the same degree, obviously, because there's like a ton of content in Xenoblade X, and just it definitely is a full game. But I feel like because I know when they introduced the concept of the like customizable avatar and the online like halfway through the development, I think like a lot of stuff was changed and reworked. So it's you can kind of feel like a lot of that in the game.
Oh, I actually didn't know that stuff was changed because like I knew a big thing was instead of like an actual main character that's defined like Shulk, you just have the avatar that you create, and I actually didn't. I always just assumed that was always like that. I didn't know they changed that.
No, yeah, it's really weird. Like the interaction between the avatar and everyone else is so minimal. It's kind of just you guys didn't need to do this.
That's another parallel to MGS5. Spoilers, am I right? So,
Oh yeah, jeez.
um,
That's weird. Like I come from a place where like I actually liked Xenosaga and Xenogears, so I'm uncomfortable with the direction Xeno as a very loosely connected franchise
not
is headed.
franchise, but kind of sorta.
Yeah, franchise in heavy quotations.
It's basically the Kingdom Hearts of RPGs.
Oh.
I'm gonna go scrub my mouth out with soap. Carry on, Zach.
Yeah, no, I've heard a lot of people say that, but everyone that's played Xenoblade X seems to say it's really good. Just don't go into it expecting Xenosaga or even Xenoblade.
Yeah, definitely don't. I kind of messed myself up at one point because some of the story missions are really good, but then some of them are just awful. Like there's just this one mission I keep thinking back to, and I had so much fun with it, but then the next one, nothing really happened. It's got its huge ups and downs in the story.
So it is the Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah.
Are you stuck on a whole different planet? That's the only thing I know about that soundtrack, but damn, that's a good song. It's a
That's
bad song, and then you keep listening to it, and it becomes a good song. It's great.
The best kind of song.
Yep.
mhm. The soundtrack is just it's so wonderful. I could just listen to it for all the wrong reasons. It's good, but it's bad.
I love to actually going back to Zach, kind of what you said, is just how fucking confusing all these Xeno games are because it's like, oh, it's the same series. Then you realize they're all made by different people, but sometimes the same team, like or at least members that had to do with stuff. And
Yeah.
then you hear shit about how Xenogears is part five of like a six-part story, and then you think that has stuff to do with it, but it actually really doesn't, and it's really
Yeah.
confusing. But basically, from what I've gathered, the interconnecting Xeno thing is like there's some shared talent there, and also as a loose theme, they're sci-fi RPGs that have to deal with some religious stuff, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
with Xenogears and the Xenosaga, you can make an argument that they were set in the same universe, even though officially they couldn't say they were. But I think with
oh, okay, I could
Xeno,
see that.
yeah,
Uh,
with like Xenoblade though, I think they just moved into like it's just loosely connected themes that are kind of the shared thing at this point.
They're just kind of using the
mhm.
name or the
Yeah,
brand.
yeah,
I
but
th-
like it's still there's a feeling to it, and I know a lot of people said that at some point Xenoblade X does feel like a Xeno game when you reach a certain point. Not, I don't know. I've avoided spoilers completely. I've just seen people saying that on Twitter.
for me, I can't really speak to that because the only two I've played were just the Xenoblades, and I haven't finished either yet. I did get spoiled on X though, so I do know what
That
happens,
sucks.
but I think it just there's some like small like hints of the sort of religious themes, but it's not really that much. Like Xenoblade though, it's definitely like it picks up at one point, and you can definitely see a lot of that.
I
I
put
like
like
that.
three
Yeah,
or 4 hours into the first Xenoblade, and I've always been meaning to go back to it. I really should.
I actually restarted it a couple months ago. Like I'm actually gonna play this, and then I got distracted. But I like that they brought back the whole mecha element in Xenoblade X
That's
because that
always
was
Oh
one
yeah.
when I was younger, that was actually one of the things that always really spoke to me about Xenogears back in the day. And I just like, I don't know, I was young and didn't, probably I just didn't have the money and I never picked it up. But I was always curious about it because like when I was a kid, I was way into that shit. So
yeah. It's yeah, it's good. I mean, it's kind of just it's weird in Xenogears and Xenosaga because they're turn-based games, so it's
yeah,
kind of like, but they implement it in a way that works. I feel it's been a long time since I played those games, but I remember liking them when I was younger.
hmm Like with Xenoblade X, I feel like so at first like you don't have the mech and everything like 30 hours whatever in you get it and you don't have the flying ability, and I really feel like that's the point where it's best because once you get the flying I feel like it hurts the exploration honestly. It's really awesome and it just feels like it controls like a dream, like it's so cool. You can just go anywhere, but I feel like that's kind of what hurts it because it's really fast and you can just go anywhere. There's nowhere like to discover anymore.
oh really? See, because what I was almost wondering if you were gonna say is like because it's so late, you get the flying, it hurt the explanation. But you're saying that as soon as you unlock it, it's like, oh well, you can just go anywhere now, and it kind of loses the charm.
Yeah, well, it's both because you do get it pretty late.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm maybe like 60 something hours. Although I did take my sweet time in the first half though. But yeah, you get it on like maybe the last quarter of the game.
Oh wow. I never actually knew that. That's pretty
Mhm.
ooh, that's
Like
pretty
that's
late.
just the flying though. The mech is like 30 hours like I said.
Uh
I think it's best with that because there's still places you can't go easily, but like it's not just you're breezing through the entire world either.
God, that game looks like, at least in terms of like AAA JRPGs, like the one right now. And like I think even before that you could make a case that Xenoblade proper was the one before that in terms of big budget main RPGs, because I don't know, like we haven't had many in a while now, because I feel hmm, like the Final Fantasy 13 sequels kind of count, but at the same time too, something about those almost like struck me as if they were a little toned down budget wise or something. Like they didn't feel as like big or as much of like a release compared to like the when Xenoblade came out, but that's probably just because those are first party games. And I can't think of any like other big JRPGs that came out for consoles. So like I feel like those two are kind of holding down the fort as far as that type of JRPG goes, and I kind of respect them and am interested in them if only for that.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's been like Tale series and stuff like that, but those kind of have their niche and haven't really gotten new people
Yeah.
into it. I think
Hmm.
the thing with Xenoblade was that it came out and a lot of people gave it a shot that didn't normally play, or at least weren't into that kind of game yet, and I feel like it created buzz because of that.
I think
Yeah.
it kind of had the Fire Emblem effect too. Well, like
Oh, for sure.
not traditionally, but like in the sense that when Shulk was in Smash Brothers, people went, "Who the fuck is this guy?" And then they kind of looked into it more, and I think that actually did a lot, both retroactively and for Xenoblade Chronicles X. Um, just looking
And
at it,
the new 3DS version came out right around that time too.
oh yeah, new Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah.
Oh god, they should have called it that. That would have been the best and the worst at the same time.
Yeah, I'm actually, now that you've said that, I'm really disappointed they didn't go for that.
Oh, I hope they do that with the next Xeno game.
Uh, it kind of sucks because it's like I kind of want a new 3DS, but at the same time, it's those things are expensive, and I already have my old 3DS, and I'm content with it. Like I know it's not the perfect handheld or whatever, and some of the hardware decisions are iffy, but like I don't feel like rebuying a system just to get that one game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when I have the Wii version, and from what I've heard, I've heard that the actual Wii version is just better all around, aside from the fact that you lack the portability of the
Yeah.
new 3DS one. So it's like I'm fine with this for now.
The portability is honestly the only reason I'd want it at all.
Yeah.
Because I'm just so bad with finishing long RPGs.
Same, like it's hard. Unless like you have like just a shit ton of free time to dedicate for it in like a short sitting, it's like
Yeah.
because I think the common problem is just well either burnout, but that's usually because like the game has bad design. But even for like good games, is you set it down for like a week and you come back to it and you're like, I don't remember what the fuck I was doing or where I'm supposed to be going. And if the game doesn't really give you enough clues as to what to do, that can be a problem. That's
Yeah.
more of a thing you see with older games, but even I think with new RPGs, it's like I don't remember where I was in this.
That's happened to me so many times.
Yep. I feel like definitely like you said, it's just a problem with older ones, but I have seen some like lately, and it's just I want to play it, but I just don't really like feel like the right like way to get into it again.
Yeah. Aside from like Xenoblade Chronicles X, anything else you've been playing? Or
Aside from that, and Metal Gear, not really.
oh yeah, Metal Gear. Are you going through those chronologically or like release order or
I did release order, except I
okay.
skipped two once I. So I bought the Legacy Collection and had all of them, but I emulated Metal Gear 1 and 2 because I'm awful at them and I need the save states.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Those games are
Yeah.
I think those
But
games are better with save states.
but
The
with Metal
original Metal Gear you're talking about.
Oof, yeah, that took me way longer than I thought it would.
Yeah, those games are weird. Like I respect them. I don't actually like them very much. Actually, like Metal Gear 2 is weird because I feel like it took a couple steps forward, couple steps back, where like you have a lot like it feels like just a 2D version of Metal Gear Solid 1 in a lot of ways, but at the same time it's like, oh now go backtrack or oh cross this invisible swamp bridge. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Get
a
the
little
temperature key.
yeah. And
Ugh,
those aren't fun.
no.
It's a weird situation because you can respect it for what it did when it came out, but I would much rather just play Solid again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed my time with the original Metal Gear games, but I'm probably never gonna go back to them.
Yeah, me too. I actually didn't even finish two. I accidentally saved over my state with like I booted up the game and I accidentally saved over the state and I never went
Oh,
back.
yeah. I don't blame you, to be honest. I tried really hard to get into those games, and I'm kind of notorious because I'll give a lot of old games with good ideas like a lot of chances to really impress me and get invested. Like fuck, I spent most of today playing Final Fantasy 3, like the NES version shit.
Oof.
Um, but yeah, like those two just didn't do it for me, which sucks because they kind of like were the pioneers of like the whole stealth thing and
Hmm.
introduced a lot of neat ideas and kind of set the ground for the rest of the wacky Metal Gear storyline and stuff like that. But yeah, those felt kind of like a chore to get through, unfortunately.
Yeah. And even then it's like you don't really need to play through like I didn't finish two, so it's but I don't feel like I missed out on anything.
Yeah.
And like the biggest connection in one with like the whole big boss and snake thing, it didn't actually happen in Metal Gear 2, so
Yeah. That's my favorite thing is that when you play through that game, you're kind of expecting that moment to happen, and it never does. And then it's like, did I miss something? And then you look into it, and it's like, oh, the big plot twist thing that is supposed to happen actually never happened and was only said to have happened in Metal Gear Solid 1. So, whatever, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
definitely oh,
oh no, carry on.
all right. I definitely do feel like I got more out of it, just like the Metal Gear Solid in general by playing through Metal Gear. But like if you don't do it, you're fine. Like it's mostly the same experience.
It's nice to see where it started from, but
Mhm.
like they're not super great, and they definitely have not aged gracefully, unfortunately.
I guess it makes the ending of five make a little more sense, but
Yeah. See, like the problem with those games is I feel like those games can be like Wikipedia plot summaried, and like you still kind of get like most of what you need.
mhm. I mean they basically are.
Yeah. Zach, if we want to move on to what you've been
Uh,
doing, we've been
yeah.
almost going like 20 minutes now. Holy shit. Fuck it.
Oh,
We can just talk about all. No, it's fine. We can talk about all the shit that we've been doing because whatever. It's not like we have a bunch of news to talk about anyways.
Yeah. I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy VII. I picked it up on the PS4, decided to go through it, and about halfway through it, I decided that I was just gonna go for 100%, do everything I could do, get all the trophies, I guess. But that's just kind of a like byproduct of like getting the gold chocobo, getting all the summons, beating Ruby and Emeralds.
Saving Aerith.
Yeah, that infamous quest line. Not a lot of people know about that. I'm surprised.
Yeah, I know.
Uh,
I mean, it was in the strategy guide that
yeah,
apparently not enough people had.
if only they knew. I mean, I won't spoil how to do it here, but
Yeah.
it's really cool once you do that.
Hmm.
And then yeah, I just today actually I finished grinding everyone up to level 99, so I'll probably be able to finish that tomorrow. And yeah, been enjoying that. It's a game I've played several times, but I always like going back to it.
It's a game that I beat once as a kid. I've gone back to many times, but never actually like beat again, I guess. Final Fantasy VII's weird for me because like it's like super. When I think of Final Fantasy games that I enjoy, it's like super in the middle. But at least for my scale of Final Fantasy games, that still means it's a damn great game. Like just that series has so many solid entries that being in the middle for that one isn't bad. Yeah, I like Seven a lot. I've said this before. I feel like Seven is such an interesting game to talk about with people just because I think there's no other game really where you hear the biggest difference of opinion on it, and for just so many different reasons. I really like hearing why people feel the way they do about that game because you get the people that hate it because it's popular. You also get the people that hate it because like they went into it expecting like a better thing than it actually was, or the people that just didn't think that it deserved the reputation it got. And like, there's a lot of reasons why people dislike it, and then the reasons I hear for liking it vary so widely too. Like, it's really interesting hearing people's opinions on like either side. Like personally, it was just a thing where when I was younger on the internet, it's just a thing you always heard about, and I tried it out and I was like, "Oh, I like this." And like it didn't really like super stick with me, but I just thought it was like, "Oh, that's a good game." And like just ever since then, I'm like kind of surprised cuz do you remember when Ocarina of Time back in the day, like I don't want to say like early internet or something stupid, but years ago, Ocarina of Time was kind of divisive too, where people were like, "Oh, it's overhyped," or people going like, "Oh, it's the best game ever." And I feel like that kind of narrowed down later on, so most people kind of ended up deciding that yeah, Ocarina is a good game or whatever. But I feel like Final Fantasy VII, which is like the other game that came out around that same time, never really got that, where it's still super divided to this day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so many different people that went into Final Fantasy VII at like different, like everyone was at different points in their lives and different points in their fandom with the series that it was really a game that a lot of people had different experiences with.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't just I don't know. Even with Ocarina of Time, it's like everyone kind of went into Ocarina of Time sort of at the same place as each other. But with Final Fantasy VII, you had a lot of people trying out RPGs for the first time. It was the first time the series was on the PlayStation. It was a new generation. There was a lot there to where there was older people that were into the series since the beginning. There was younger people just getting into it. It's definitely interesting for that reason. Yeah.
One of my favorite things is one of my friends got into it, and because the game's called Final Fantasy VII, right? And
Yes.
they didn't know shit about anything, and that they're like, yeah, that intro scene is confusing enough to believe that you missed out on 6 games worth of shit until you get into it and realize it's self-contained. But like as a kid, yeah, you pick that up. It's like I don't know who the fuck any of these people are, why they're on this train trying to blow up this reactor. Like it's pretty
Yeah.
confusing. It throws you right in there. Also, too, you get stuff like the translation was pretty poor,
Oh, it was
which
awful.
it was a
Yeah.
product of the time, which thankfully re-releases have since gone back through and cleaned it up enough. But
They've cleaned it up, not perfectly, but enough to where
it's
the like most glaring stuff has been
yeah,
fixed.
it's like decent now, like passable sort of thing.
There's still a few like major issues with just like they shouldn't have used. I'm trying to dance around spoilers for such an old game, but they shouldn't have used certain words to describe certain things because it's a little misleading. But aside from that, like the actual errors have been mostly fixed up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, that game, I mean, it's not my favorite game of all time. It's probably it might not even be my favorite Final Fantasy, but I played it when I was very young, so it kind of means something to me in that way.
yeah, like I'm kind of there with you. The things I feel like a or the Final Fantasy games rather that I feel a emotional investment in, I guess, from childhood. Weirdly enough, it's a trio of 10, 9, and 3. Um, so like 7 kind of missed the boat for me on like at least the nostalgia thing, but it's one of those things where I played actually, I got it. I still remember when I got that game because I got it in like this weird bundle where it came. I got it off of some dude's eBay posting, so I got 7 along with Advent Children and Spirits
Ooh.
Within,
Oh, yeah.
which was wonderful. I still have Spirits Within and Advent Children right here on my bookshelf. Um, so those are things, but like it was always a game where like I played, and I'm like that's a solid 9 out of 10 sort of deal, and just I don't know, like I always have thought like that's a great JRPG, like not perfect. And I feel like 7 kind of has the Star Wars effect where you ever hear how like some of the people that worked on Star Wars talk about it, and they're kind of weirded out because it started off as kind of like a old like Flash Gordon sci-fi serial um homage or something like that.
Yeah.
And like people kind of forget that now just because it came as big and mainstream as it did and just kind of became such a cultural thing. In the same way, I kind of feel like a lot of people forget about how 7 played around with traditional JRPG tropes. Um, because like people will bring up stuff about like Cloud and how they kind of play around with him, but at the same time too, I think a lot of people forget even the beginning of the game. Avalanche looks like a shit ton of terrorists and like super sketchy. Yeah, like
Oh
stuff.
yeah, I mean that
Yeah.
like yeah, they that's like a major thing in that game.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people forget about stuff like that where there's a lot of playing around with traditional stuff. Like you're not a bunch of like rebels going out and doing something great. You're pretty much just a bunch of terrorists.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and innocent people are dying because of what you're doing.
Yeah. Like I think stuff, and also too. Uh, God, this is kind of fuck it. I'm not even gonna dodge spoilers on this one. I do think that kind of setting up the antagonist as being Shinra and then slowly kind of revealing that Sephiroth is the bigger issue is pretty neat. I do think the translation did kind of hurt that though, which sucks. But
Yeah.
That super long flashback or whatever.
oh yeah,
Jeez.
It's fantastic. I honestly playing the game again older because I the last time I played it was like maybe several years ago, but like playing it now, I'm respecting a lot more of the like direction in the game. Like it's a well directed game. Like the camera angles, the pacing of scenes, the way music kicks in and kicks out at certain moments.
I can agree
It's
with
a,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
for
it's
sure.
really well put together. There's a lot of scenes where like I got to it, I'm like I remember liking this scene when I was a kid, but like now I'm like, oh man, that's so cool the way they did that moment.
Yeah,
Mhm.
especially
Yeah,
like for the time. Like you don't get that with a lot of PS1 games you go back to, So stuff like that is really neat.
yeah,
I
and I mean
think the
especially
the pre-rendered background stuff helps, but yeah, carry on.
well, no, I just mean especially going from like six is a fantastic game, but it's sprites,
Yeah,
and they did a lot with sprites in that game to like convey the things they did in six with just sprites is awesome. But going from that to seven, a lot of people get caught up in just like, oh, they look like ugly blocky
they got the
polygons.
Lego arms.
Yeah, but like, man, it's really impressive how they jumped in direction and stuff like that in that game.
Yeah,
I
got
hope.
the.
Oh,
I was about to say at the same time, holy shit, the jump from 7 models to 8 models are like Jesus.
Yeah,
yeah.
The models in 8 look amazing.
yeah,
I
eight. It's I like eight.
It's okay.
I'm I won't get into that one too much.
We have to save the Final Fantasy episode.
Yeah, we'll
We'll
do
do it
that at
one
some
day.
point.
We'll do it one day. When I'm later on in the Final Fantasy replays. Matt, were you gonna say something?
Oh, right. Actually forgot. No, I was just gonna say I really hope they have like a Block Arms Cloud costume in FF7
Oh,
remake.
I've been saying that. So like, man, I think JRPGs doing the like DLC costume things are just like the stupidest, like greediest shit ever.
Mhm.
Man, I would shill so hard if they have PS1 models in the
Me too.
remake. Like, I want to play through that game looking as beautiful as it does with just Black Cloud, because
Yeah,
that
me too.
would make me so happy because it looks so stupid.
I did an entire playthrough of MGS4 with the blocky PS1 face mask. It was amazing.
Yeah, actually, speaking about the remake, how you guys feeling about that? I have complex feelings, but I'll let you guys go first.
Matt, you go ahead. I've been talking a while.
All right. I think for me it's like I really do like Final Fantasy VII a lot, but I think at the same time, like I love turn-based RPGs, but I don't like the ATB system at all.
I can get behind that.
I just I think it's stupid. Like I guess it like works because like in the sense that like you feel more invested, like you have to put more input than you might have otherwise, but at the same time it just feels like a turn-based RPG where you have to wait.
See, because you know what always bothered me about ATB, and like I've always like ATB has never bothered me per se, but it's always kind of been like in my mind, ATB has almost always been just a weird way of doing turns in the first place. Because no matter how it works out, it's very rarely where it's like, oh, someone gets in 2 turns before another person does. Like that almost never happens.
Unless you get
Yeah.
like caught up deciding what you want to do.
Yeah, and even then, like at least for me, I play those games on wait mode just because I don't know. I think, oh no, I gotta scroll through my inventory menu to get to the elixir is not super entertaining. But like, yeah, I always feel like ATB was not the best implemented, at least for how they wanted to do it. Because what it sounds like they wanted to do is like, oh, you can, like all the different speed stats will factor in, and an enemy might go two times before your character can go. But it almost always ends up going in the same order of people, anyways. And I always felt like it was just a waste of time. Like I would have rather they had just done regular turns, to be honest.
Yeah. It makes enemy order really weird sometimes too if there are a lot.
Yeah.
I think though just like it makes me interested about what they're going to do in the remake because well I still would have preferred like just a straight like turn-based without the ATB or just like a modified version of it. I don't exactly like hate the idea of the action RPG either, but I just want to see how they're going to do it because
Um,
yeah.
oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying because I feel like they could do a lot of interesting stuff with it.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, they could do a lot of interesting stuff with it. I just personally, I prefer turn-based action RPG a bit, but I have a turn-based Final Fantasy 7, so if they want to do a more action thing with the remake, I'm fine seeing where that goes. It just I don't know. I feel like Square Enix is in a situation where they're kind of almost afraid to do turn-based these days.
That's kind of
Yeah.
how I'm feeling. Okay, so here's my thing. In my mind, and this is, I don't know why, this just made sense to me. I felt like if they were going to go an action RPG route, they were just going to do a Crisis Core thing, which it don't look like they're doing. And I actually like I think Crisis Core plays pretty fun, but it looks like they're just doing a whole new thing for it, or at least they're using 15's engine, that's for sure, but it looks like it's going to be different from that. So at least in my mind, I'm kind of sad because it's like, man, I'm kind of sad that turn-based mainstream console RPGs are probably not going to really be a thing ever again. And what sucks too is I feel like that's a product of the time where RPGs were kind of on the decline and people were saying, oh, turn-based, like that was around the time where you started to see like articles and shit about how random encounters were literally the devil and
Yeah.
like turn-based gameplay was lame and not great and shit like that. And I feel like nowadays that's not so much the case. Like I could be proven wrong, but because like Bravely Default is what I keep thinking of, where that was the game that was kind of done with that more traditional style, and Square thought it would do pretty bad, and then it ended up doing great. And I feel like if they made a Final Fantasy VII remake and they did a turn-based thing, it would still well. I think the main actual thing is no matter what happens with it, it's called Final Fantasy VII. It's going to sell like a shit ton no matter how they handle it. But
Yeah, but like the reason why it'll sell a shit ton is because people love Final Fantasy VII, and Final Fantasy VII was turn-based, so I don't see why they think that a turn-based Final Fantasy VII won't sell.
yeah, and that's what kind of bums me out. My okay, so my main issue with it though at its core was and I know Zach, you don't feel the way I do about this, but at least in terms of like Final Fantasy's recent action RPG games, I haven't really been feeling them, to be honest. Um, at least like Lightning Returns, from when I played of it, didn't really do much for me. Like I thought it was like fine, but it didn't really appeal to me. Uh, Type Zero is like super duper 5 out of 10 for me, where it's just this is middle of the road. It's not awful, but I'm not having fun really either. And then recently, actually, I played the well, not recently. It's been a few weeks now, but I tried out the 15 demo because someone hooked me up with that, and it's really weird because my friend had the 15 demo, and like I played the first unpatched version of that, and now I've gotten a chance to play the patched version of it, and I have it on my PS4 because someone gave me a code very kindly. And like they did actually improve it with that patch. I was pretty surprised to see how noticeable the increase was in performance and stuff like that. And like 15, at least from what I've played of it, or from that little demo snippet, is like okay. Like I'd say it's like a 6.5. So like I feel like Square Enix is getting there, but then it kind of came out that it seems like CyberConnect 2 is actually going to be mostly in charge of the gameplay stuff. And to be honest, I trust them more than Square Enix proper at this point to make a good action RPG. So I'm not gonna lie. At first, I was like, "Wow, fuck this shit" when they first showed off the gameplay reveal. But then after I learned that news, where it's like, "Well, CyberConnect is gonna have a say in this," I'm kind of warmed up to the idea more. I still wish it was turn-based deep down, and like that kind of bothers me. But I'll still probably get it day one and stuff. It's just I don't know. I'm really jaded when it comes to Square Enix's ability to make games nowadays.
You
Yeah,
mean
me
you'll get
too.
episode one?
Oh yeah, the episodic thing never really. So like the episodic thing has been weird. I feel split on it because on one hand there have been reports from people saying stuff like, "Oh, Square Enix has been talking about splitting games up as a business strategy and not just as DLC." And on one hand, I'm like, "Yeah, that's probably the case for it." On the other hand, though, I almost wonder if it's a good thing because, and this is like directly just related to, I played Life is Strange when that was coming out, and that was an episodic thing, as you guys probably know. And with that one thing that really struck out to me is that the developers of that game, as the game went on, they listened to internet feedback, they looked at the critical reception they were getting, and they made improvements, and they actually made the game better as it went on. And that's a great strength of the episodic format that I don't think enough people talk about. And I really hope that if we do end up getting, I don't know how many episodes it's going to be. Oh, also, actually, you want to know one thing that does bother me? The people that are like, "Oh yeah, it's going to be 3 episodes, one for each disc." Those people have not played Final Fantasy VII.
No.
Those
Definitely
people
not.
have not played Final Fantasy VII. That
Oh man,
last
disc three, that whole hour.
that whole hour, yep, exactly. That whole disc is just the final dungeon, you fuckers. Anyways, no, anyways, um, no, but I honestly think if they do enough episodes, I'm actually kind of excited about the episodic thing, if only because seeing what Square did with the Final Fantasy 15 demo, where people complained about some stuff and they said, "Hey, why don't we go back and fix that and release a patch?" So they've shown that they're receptive to criticism and stuff like that, and they're willing to make changes to their combat systems. I'm actually pretty excited to see how they do that with the 7 episodic release, where if episode 1 comes out and people go, "I didn't like this," or reviews notice a similar trend of flaws, I would totally believe that they'd be willing to go back for episode 2 and further on to change, like make changes and fix stuff up, which interests me a lot, to be honest, just because, I mean, we've never gotten an RPG like that before, and that could be really cool. So,
I mean, say what you will about the 13 sequels, it's very clear that they listened to a lot of criticisms of 13 in them.
yeah,
Whether you think that they're good games as a result of listening to the criticism is up to the individual,
yeah.
but 13-2 is a direct response to criticism of 13.
Like, they've always been pretty good with a lot of stuff like that. Like, there's some other things that, I mean, they haven't been super great with, I think. Like, did anyone want those lightning fashion
Yeah, what
model?
is that?
Yeah, I don't know what was up with that.
Like it's really weird because I feel like on some things Square Enix is really on point and like receptive to, and then other things it's like what? Like I feel like the pushing of lightning as just a thing is kind of weird sometimes, just because I don't know why they push her really.
Well, I'm not gonna get too much into that, but outside, I mean, just the fashion thing. I don't see the crossover there.
Yeah, it's weird. Also, isn't the point of a model to like show off how things look on like a real person? Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose? That confuses me, but
Yeah,
no, there's some things though that yeah, confuse me about how Square handles Final Fantasy, but sometimes like they have shown that they're receptive to like at least gameplay stuff. Um, and I think too, from what I've heard, I think when they made that second Dissidia game, they actually made some changes that were directly related to criticisms of the first Dissidia. So like yeah, they've proven before that they can do stuff like that. So who
I
knows?
mean, I think my main thing going back to 7, they've talked about fleshing the game out and adding even more to it.
So the last episode's going to be Advent Children, right?
Fuck you.
Ooh, gosh.
My
No,
reunion
yeah.
is complete.
You're dying to watch.
Stay where you belong, Zach. In my memories. That's how Cloud
Ooh.
sounds in my version of Final Fantasy VII.
It's good. Chilly, shelly, dilly, dally.
God damn it.
But yeah, I mean, like, if I would love to like fully explore Midgar. Like, if they're gonna flesh something out, make Midgar episode one and add like the whole city.
And Mecha can fly.
Yes.
I'd be down for that, actually. That was a
Yeah,
joke. I'd be super down if they added Mecha to Final Fantasy VII.
I would totally just love that because it wouldn't be out of place.
No, I guess not.
It really wouldn't for Final Fantasy VII Land.
You fight them.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
one thing that I have seen is some people concerned about maybe if it's episodic, how are they gonna handle things like the world map? Like, is there still gonna be a world map, or are you kind of gonna be set off and are you gonna be kind of like corralled into specific regions for each episode and stuff like that? And I'm not gonna lie, stuff like that would bother me a little bit. I think I would get over it with time, but like I kind of how do I put this? I kind of hope it's a thing where like you download episode one and then you download episode two and like it just adds on more shit.
Ooh,
But
that would be a really cool way to do it.
because I don't know, because I could see it be a thing where it's like, oh, you could download episode two, you just can't go back to the locales from episode one then. But I don't know how that would work, and that's probably
Well, I mean, the way the game is set up. I mean, I'm just assuming. Obviously, I don't know. I'm assuming episode one is Midgar, and if they
yeah,
end episode one with when you
Yeah.
leave Midgar, you don't really go back there again. Like you kind of do, but it's a very small section.
yeah.
So it that could work that way. I don't think we're ever we're not gonna get a world map in the way the PS1 game was. They aren't gonna do it. You're not gonna walk out of Midgar and have super deformed cloud
I
and then
want that
open up with
though.
airship. It's not.
I want it.
Yeah, I'd love it. I miss old RPGs like that, but it's
Oh,
not gonna happen.
rip.
They could do Pokemon styled progression blocking with giant trees in the way.
Cloud doesn't know cut. With his big sword, he just doesn't know how to cut that tree down. He needs to
Oh,
find the
that's
cut
another thing I was gonna
chocobo.
bring up. Sorry. Do you think they're gonna like? I doubt it, but do you think they're gonna have to where you can actually physically see your weapon change, like changeable weapons?
I really hope so.
That would be
Because
really cool.
if I recall, you could in Final Fantasy One, like PS1, right? Like shit actually changed on the character models, right?
Yeah. Well, all of them really. I mean, even Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the one. That's what I meant. Like in Final Fantasy
Yeah.
VII, like all the models and stuff changed, if I recall.
Yeah, yeah. They all had different weapons. I mean, you could even get like Barrett get like a drill that he attacks physically with instead of a gun.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So I'm not crazy.
Yeah, but I don't know. I have a feeling that we're gonna just be seeing the Buster Sword.
because it's so iconic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know what sucks? Because yeah,
I
actually.
mean, they made his outfit black too instead of blue.
Oh, really? I just thought that was the lighting.
I mean, it might just be the lighting, but if it is, it's still definitely a darker blue than the original.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, I have to go back and look at that then. I didn't notice that at all.
If it's not black, it's a lot darker blue because the original blue is pretty light.
I do think that if they could add in some more stuff from extended shit, and like this is the one thing I'd want. I think Cloud's sword from Advent Children is like actually one of the coolest sword designs I've seen ever, and I actually would not be against that being in there. But see, because you know what sucks too about the Buster Sword is that's the worst sword Cloud gets in Final Fantasy VII. It's just iconic, and it's the one people know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, there is story relevance to it as well, but
Yeah, but like at the same time, it's like you use it and then you kind of
yeah, you're done with that within an hour.
you get like the wooden plank with the nail in it and shit, and I want to see that in glorious HD, you know?
I want to see ultimate weapon.
That too.
Ooh, yeah, for sure.
I want there to be a gunblade and a keyblade and no.
Yeah. I
Oh,
want the gunblade. I want Lightning's gunblade. I want
I want the stupid bandage sword Cloud
oh,
has.
oh yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
yeah.
I want that. I want
When I was younger, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. Fuck me.
oh,
Anyways, we don't talk about that anymore.
it's all right.
Yeah. Final Fantasy VII remake is it'll be a thing. I think they recently came out and said there's no. I feel like I saw recently people saying, yeah, that's not 2016.
Oh, no way.
I think that just got confirmed randomly. Like I actually think that's literally the last news we got on it was someone saying, yeah, that's not this year.
I
I
thought
think
that
it
was a
was
given.
yeah. Well, I think what it was the what was it, Famitsu? I don't know who it was, but some Japanese thing asked like all the developers like, "Oh, what are you looking forward to for this year?" You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, yeah, they do because they
Oh,
do
okay.
that.
Yeah, I think the people behind 7 were like, "Oh, we're going to keep working on this." But like the people behind 15 were like, "We're releasing it." So it's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, 15 is going to be the game this year." They're not going to try to overshadow 15 with 7, I think.
And the main director of Persona 5 is like, 2016 is going to be the release date of Persona 5, hopefully. And
Yeah.
everyone's like, wait, what? And then they later reconfirmed it as 2016. Oh my
I
god,
think
if
it was
they.
clear he was just joking, but
Yeah,
people took
I
it very
thought.
seriously.
I got that vibe too, but yeah. Oh my god, if they delayed that game one more time, people would
Oof.
die.
I hope they do just to see it.
I kind of like, just like a week, you know?
I just want to see what people do.
Yeah. Uh, oh, Persona 5. Uh,
I hope they release 2 more mainline games before it comes out.
SMT4 Final. Yeah.
Final Dash 2.
Actually, shoot. Now that I think about it, I know this is going back a little, but Rosin, you mentioned all the Bravely Default stuff, and I
Yeah.
just remember this. But all the stuff that people like, that is Square going back and adding that because the original Bravely Default didn't have that.
Yeah, it was like, God, that was. I remember this because that version of the game that we got is the lamest, like Ultimate Edition subtitle ever, wasn't it? For the sequel.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is the most
that's
dumb
a
thing.
yeah, because that's
I
exactly what it
forgot.
was though.
Yeah.
Because it was like, oh, hey, we'll put this in the second game.
Oh yeah, cause yeah, isn't that what it was? Where they're like, oh, we're gonna make the version that this is all the stuff that's gonna be in two. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
That's kind of why I feel like people aren't gonna see as many gameplay improvements in America and like overseas or whatever with
yeah,
second because it's the same gameplay.
that comes out in a couple weeks now, don't it?
I think that's for Europe.
Oh, did we get it yet or no?
I don't
No.
think so. I know it was like this for Bravely Default too, though. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, well, I haven't played Bravely Default,
Neither
so
have I. All I know is that the music is apparently good, and
oh, it's so good.
the last part of one sucks, but
yep.
that's kind of like the one thing everyone knows at this point. I think about Bravely Default is everyone's like, I loved it, and then the ending happened, or the ending sequence happened.
The last like 1/3 of the game,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is the reason why I haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, same. That kind of sounds like a killer for me.
I mean, I wouldn't call it a third, but yeah, it's definitely.
And from what I've heard too, if you know what you're doing, you can rush through it, but at
Mhm.
the same time, that still sounds bad.
Yeah, it's just really blatant about the way it does it, and it doesn't work.
Oh, that's depressing.
Except I know, oh gosh, I won't spoil anything, but like eventually you get to some new content during that section, and it's actually really interesting. But you have to trudge through a bunch of the same stuff before you get to that, and it's just, why didn't you guys do this through the
Yeah.
entire thing? It would have made people like more interested in it.
Yeah.
Because by the point where they started doing it, it's just no one cares anymore.
And that sucks. That's
Yeah.
depressing. Because like
Like,
that game sounded like it was gonna be like the one, and then that came out about it.
yeah. Like I adore the game. Like I love the gameplay and the job system so much, but that part really does hurt it. Not as much as people say, but it definitely does.
Hopefully, the sequel doesn't have anything like that. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We kind of strayed. Zach, what you been playing or doing anything else with
oh,
free time?
yeah. I mean, other than 7, I've been I mean, the holiday season happened, so I bought myself a couple of stuff. I have Splatoon. I've been playing some Splatoon.
Are you a kid now?
I am a kid now, and also a squid now.
Good job.
Yes. It's fun. I got Star Wars Battlefront for Christmas, and then I traded it in for Splatoon. Uh,
That's a good choice.
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm happy with the choice I made,
My
and
Christmas was filled with my cousin showing me Battlefront and being like, "So you gonna get it?" And I was like, "Maybe
mm,
someday." Like
Yeah.
SpongeBob conch voice, maybe someday. Um, uh, ooh,
uh,
that's a shooter that I would buy for $5 and play maybe a couple times.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
Trillion
yeah,
expired.
no. But Splatoon, I like it because it's got like I mean, it's a team-based competitive shooter, but I like the element of trying to cover the ground in ink as opposed to killing the other players. And you do have to shoot the other players, but always as like a means to an end of covering the ground in your team's ink.
It reminds
And
me of
it's
this laser tag thing that we used to have way back in like a couple cities away or some shit, where the idea behind it was like shooting targets and not so much the other players. That's always what Splatoon has reminded me of, because it's like the other players are there and like you need to quote unquote shoot them, but like that's not the main objective, right?
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
no, yeah, you shoot them to get them to stop covering the ground that they're covering, so that you can then shoot over the ground they covered with your own thing.
Mhm. And then they kind of incentivize it too, but not to like an extent where like you feel like really obligated to do it all the time. Because like when you get a kill or whatever, they like explode into your ink, so it helps cover that too.
Yeah. I mean, it normally winds up like if you run into another player, you're gonna try to shoot each other. But if
Yeah.
you like run away and go to a different area, they're not gonna follow you. They're gonna try to cover the ground. So it's like it's not the priority. I mean, it's a fun game. I haven't really played too much of it just because I'm not huge into shooters in general. But if I was gonna play a shooter, it'd be Splatoon.
I think that game did a lot better than a lot of people thought it would do.
Yeah,
Cause,
no,
cause when it first was revealed, it's like, oh, that seems like a fun little online thing, and then like it kind of took over.
yeah, I was not expecting it to be popular at all.
Yeah, I know like just during the E3 when they announced it, people were like, "Oh, this is a game, I guess." Like they had
Yeah,
the announcement in the freaking aquarium thing. I'm like, "What is this?"
yeah, and then oh yeah, other than that, just I also tried out Mario Maker, which is that's cool. That's neat.
Do you think it's worth the price? That's the one thing I hear a lot about that game.
It depends entirely on you.
Okay.
Um, if you, it honestly, it's the kind of thing like if you hear the concept of you get to make your own Mario levels, and if that sounds like it's worth the price, then it is. If it doesn't, then it's not.
You know what sucks is from my perspective, I hear that and I'm like, oh boy, time to reinstall the Super Mario World level editor.
Eh.
um, which I know Mario Maker is a lot more detailed and you can do a lot more cool shit with it, but just
Yeah, I mean it's cool, but it's hey, it was a Christmas gift. I didn't buy it.
oh okay.
I
Uh,
probably wouldn't have bought it, but it was something I wanted to play, so I'm glad I got it.
It seems like a lot of fun. I've just heard the content is like vary your mileage may vary on
Yes.
the worth, so
yeah.
yeah.
It honestly, it's like, do you feel like making levels, and do you have friends that make levels?
A lot of places gave it Game of the Year actually, which I wasn't like I never thought about it, but I'm like, yeah, I could see that. Like you have basically infinite Mario, you know?
Yeah.
You do, but most of it is garbage.
Oh.
It's like, what is that? Project Spark? You make the game?
Oh yeah, I've heard bad
Oh
things.
yeah.
You know, the one with that though is that apparently the official levels and stuff that they create for that and put out are super glitchy and like awful to the point where like people are mad that they can't get refunds.
Oh yeah, I heard the Conquer one was absolute garbage.
Yep, that's the one I've heard about too. And a few others, but that's the big one I think just because Conquer was attached to that one. Oh, created levels.
Mm.
What fun they are. Have you ever seen the one that takes the piss out of David Cage and is like you have to save your son or some shit?
Yeah.
That's a that's a thing.
Yep. That's a funny thing. Mario Maker, you can do things with it, but eh.
Moving on. Actually, Zach, did you do anything else? Or you have anything else to talk about, or?
No, not really. There's a lot of stuff that I want to get to. I'm in a Final Fantasy mood, so I've got Final Fantasy stuff planned. Hopefully, by the time the next episode happens, I'll have actually played Type Zero and I can give my opinion on that.
Yay. I've been doing some stuff. I started Daredevil, which I mean, I've always heard was good, and then I ended up hearing like this was a while back. Someone who like a friend of a friend actually was one of the. God, I don't even want to say friend of a friend. Hmm, like my friend's acquaintance or like someone my friend talked to a few times and like apparently hung out a couple times with. Like wrote I think like episode 5 and like another episode of it like was like in charge of the script for him. So I was kind of like interested from like, oh, I always like when people from the Midwest go on to do successful things because it makes me feel better about my life. So I kind of was interested in Daredevil just because like, oh, it's like vaguely connected to my life in like a weird roundabout way. So yeah, I actually funnily enough, the last episode I left off on was episode 5 and I was like, yep, that's the episode, and it wasn't anything spectacular or anything, but it's like it's nice to know that like people vaguely from around where you grew up, found success in places. So that was fun. Daredevil's a good show. Holy shit! Like I knew it was good, but I guess I never really understood what it was about. Like I knew it was grittier. I knew it was kind of more of like a street level thing, but it's pretty interesting what it has to say about kind of law and organized crime and kind of like the whole vigilante sort of deal, which I mean sounds super generic in the way I'm describing it, but there's a lot of fun stuff in there just talking about how sometimes trying to solve a problem can lead to more problems and like intentions definitely do matter. Like it's not just the actions that matter, it's the intentions and the meaning behind things that matters too. One thing that really struck out to me was there's this scene and I don't remember the characters, but there's like it's like an older, I want to say like a mobster guy talking with like someone who's younger and a bit more involved in the crime scene. And he goes like, it used to be back in the day where they just kill you, and now they just kill your family and then they kill you. When talking about how the organized crime in New York is kind of gone, and that just kind of made me like reflect on just like the whole like old glory days of The Godfather and shit like that being super duper praised and kind of people had this weird idealized view of organized crime and shit, and then like more recently it's been a lot grittier and darker interpretations of that sort of thing. They kind of just expose what they're actually like in media and stuff like that. So yeah, Daredevil's been fun. I don't know if either of you have. Well, I know Zach, you've watched it. Matt, have you watched it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot, but I feel like it really needed that second season.
That's coming out soon, isn't it?
I think March or something.
Oh wow, that's actually sooner than I expected.
Yeah, like it's fairly self-contained, but like some stuff just doesn't get expanded on as much as I'd like it to. So I feel like they have that to kind of just wrap everything up to a greater point than they did at least.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from on that. It's a very good show, but it's well self-contained, but it's also I guess going into it knowing that they plan for it to be sort of the launching point of like the Netflix Marvel line, you could see a little bit of that and where like there's stuff left way open for future stuff.
Is it kind of like that one scene in Age of Ultron where it's like, hey, Tony and Cap aren't getting along, very wink wink nudge nudge, this ain't gonna come back later sort of thing? Or
No, it's more
mm-mm.
like the scene of Age. It's more like the scene in Age of Ultron where Thor goes, "There's a problem that I have to deal with later."
Okay. I forgot about that until just now. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does Daredevil go, I need to call my friend, and then looks at the camera, the Punisher.
No, I wish he did though.
I was actually I looked at I was just looking at some interviews and stuff just because I was bored just on my phone between you know university stuff, and I did see one thing that kind of made me laugh where apparently in the first episode where they say they talk about like, oh, prices have been going down for like housing around here since the incident, and it's clearly referencing the first Avengers. Apparently they originally just were straight out going to say since the alien invasion, but they're like, yeah, that's a tone killer.
Yeah.
It's really funny when you think about like, oh man, this really gritty, brutal, violent death scene takes place in the same universe where like Thor is chatting up Natalie Portman.
Yeah, can you imagine if like that opening scene where like the sex slave people are like kidnapping girls and forcing them into like a shipping container if just Hulk broke in and just like that
Oh
would
gosh.
be so much of a mood whiplash.
Yeah.
Like to the point of being just too absurd to watch.
But I mean, that's the way the comics are. So
That's true.
I'm
Yeah.
glad that we've got both sides of it.
I am too. I'm pretty happy with how the Marvel Cinematic Universe has gone, even though I feel like some of their movies aren't super doing it for me. Like I
Age of
think
Ultron,
Age of Ultron I liked, but I was
I didn't.
noticeably oh really. I enjoyed it for what it was, but it was noticeably weaker. Ant-Man I wasn't feeling super much to be honest. Like I enjoyed it, but at the same time I just feel like it's getting a little less novel, and I feel like
Yeah.
it's just I don't know. I feel like they haven't been as on point. I'm really hoping Cap 3 brings it back because holy shit, Winter Soldier is my favorite thing that was made in that universe so far. But I don't know. I'm kind of having my doubts, but hopefully,
It looks like Civil War is the Avengers 2 that I wanted.
yeah. And
Yeah.
that kind of bums me out.
I would really like them to focus on the Civil War aspect more than it seems like they're gonna do.
Yeah, 'cause it's gonna be just one movie thing.
Yeah,
And
because
close it up.
like the way they're doing it, it's just like it's not really a Civil War. It's just Captain America and the Winter Soldier versus Iron Man. Not everyone.
And,
Well,
yeah,
I mean, they've got a bunch of other characters in there, but we'll
Oh
see
yeah,
how
they're
much they're
there,
actually
but
focused
like,
on. Yeah.
it's just weird because in the comics thing, you literally have like hundreds upon hundreds of characters and like groups and shit that just it's literally a war. And this one, it's more like civil feud. You
Yeah.
know,
yeah,
a little less global because they just don't like. I mean, they don't have like the rights to the X-Men and Fantastic Four and shit like that, and some other characters that they do own just haven't been introduced, and probably there's like a lot of random heroes and things here and there that just don't exist in that universe just because they're not big enough. So,
Yeah.
but
Where's
yeah,
Spider-Man?
no, like, man, Age of Ultron was so weird because it was like it kind of just felt like Avengers again.
Age of Ultron to me, there was a good movie somewhere in there that got bogged down by franchise bullshit.
I feel like that was the one where they went just over the line enough in terms of doing too much and having too much going on that it kind of bogged the whole thing down for me.
Yeah.
Especially with the Vision.
Yep.
Like that didn't
That's the
need to be
thing I was
there.
thinking of.
Yeah.
Like that was the plot thread where I'm like, okay, you went one step over and you kind of lost me now.
Yeah.
There was way too much. They were trying to do too much, and they didn't focus on the areas. They didn't focus on just making it a good single movie.
Yeah. Well, that's Marvel talk. Anyways,
Yeah.
I'll continue watching Daredevil, and I'll probably finish it up. I kind of stopped just because I got busy and sidetracked with other stuff, and I haven't been able to watch it in a while. But well, I mean, excuse me. I mean, I watched episodes 1 through 4 pretty much back to back, and then I watched 5 a little bit later, and I think I'll try and wrap it up probably in the next week or two. So that's fun.
You gotta get on that Jessica Jones
Yeah, I want to
train.
watch that next too. I'm actually pretty excited for that.
It's
Oh yeah, I
really
have to do
good.
that too.
I like it a bit more than Daredevil, but I wouldn't say it's better.
That's I was talking with my brother-in-law uh during Christmas and stuff, and he said the same thing pretty much. So that's interesting to me. I played
Hmm.
Undertale, which I recorded a review for, and I liked it. It was a fun game. If you haven't played Undertale, you probably should. And if you don't know what Undertale is, just go download it and play it, assuming you like RPGs, and just don't look at anything about it, because I think you'll probably enjoy it better that way. I don't have too much to say about it, other than I had some serious problems with it, but overall, I think the good far outweighs the bad. So yeah, I don't know. I have a weird perspective on that game, I think. Either of you played it?
No.
Yeah. I think it's a very novel game. It's really good in the beginning just because of how unique it feels, but at the same time, it's like, okay, this is kind of like Earthbound.
Yeah, and that kind of I feel like it's weird because that did have an impact on how I looked at it, especially too because like that dude was like a Earthbound, like you started from the Earthbound community before like going on to making stuff, so that it's
Yeah.
obvious the influences there. Um, and like I feel weird because I feel like if I hadn't have been as invested, because like Earthbound's my second favorite game of all time. Mother 3 is my favorite game of all time. And I feel like in a world where I never got exposed to Earthbound or Mother 3, Undertale would probably be my favorite thing ever. Um, but it's just weird looking at it, having been a fan of those two for a while now. What I will say though is I feel like Undertale's the closest to a Mother 4 will probably get without like there's a Mother 4 fan game coming out that people are excited about, but to me it's like I feel like they're flying a little too close to the sun, or at least like it just feels kind of uninspired because of how derivative and like how hard they're trying to imitate the game that it ends up feeling just kind of like a bootleg game to me instead of being a fan game. It kind of bothers me, but yeah, it's I don't know, it's weird.
No, I feel the same way about that too because like it's straight up called Mother 4. Like that makes it seem like almost like a Pokemon fan game kind of thing.
Yeah, and like that's always kind of bothered me, but there has been a quote from Itoy that or Itoy, dude who made it, who said something to the effect of he basically said like I want to play someone else's Mother 4, and I'm like okay, that kind of resolves it for me, but at the same time I'd be a lot happier if it was just called Mother colon thing.
Yeah.
And there is another there's a fan game that like takes place I think between Mother 1 and 2 called I believe it's just called Cognitive Dissonance, and they just called it that, and like that sort of thing I'm actually a lot more happy with just because it's like kind of giving the series that respect to not call it like Mother 1.5. I don't know, that
Yeah.
it just always feels weird to me. But yeah, Undertale's a thing. Like I said, it's fun. And also a lot of the things that I took issue with, uh, I seem to be fairly alone in, aside from like just a couple other people I've seen. So yeah, go play it. It's a fun game, and you'll probably love the shit out of it, assuming you like RPGs and if you're fine with bullet hell mechanics. Then other than that, I finally beat Bloodborne. I played some Final Fantasy 3, but that's not worth talking about because I want to make like a video thing on it. But yeah, I beat Bloodborne. Actually, Matt, I should ask, are you a big Souls guy?
I have actually not. I own Bloodborne, but I have not played the other games.
Okay.
So Bloodborne, I'm kind of just trying to finish up like all the games I'm playing right now. I have it. It's sitting on my desk, and it's just I don't even unwrap it because I know if I do, I'm gonna have to start playing it, and then I'll get really far and never finish it.
Rip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we've talked about Bloodborne enough on this podcast.
Have we mentioned it?
Yeah, I don't know if
Probably
we've ever
not.
talked about it before, even. No, so I'm gonna try and keep this short. I like it a lot. It's really good. It's super close to Dark Souls 1 for me. There's a few things I took issue with that I think kind of put it a little bit behind. The first thing, and this is like the only, well, I mean, I think I kind of said I had some. I don't really like the vial and bullet system just because like you kind of have to farm sometimes, and that's kind of annoying. That goes away as you get better at the game, but for your first time going through, it kind of sucks. Um, the only big gameplay concern I really had other than that was Souls games have always had like weird camera issues during like boss fights and stuff. but you never really notice or pick up on it too hard in the other games because they're slow enough where that it doesn't matter and you can fix the camera manually right away. In Bloodborne, the added speed, I think, kind of leads to some issues. I think back to my fight with Ebriatus, who is probably the boss I actually died to the most, even including DLC bosses. And I had a lot of deaths to her just because the camera got stuck on the cave wall and I just couldn't see shit and I couldn't react fast enough to a thing she did and I just ended up dying. So that kind of was an issue for me. But other than that, just even with the DLC, I feel like Bloodborne kind of lacks the customization and different play styles that Dark Souls had. The DLC definitely helps though in the case of Bloodborne, whereas the base game was super bad with that. The DLC adds in some cool weapons and stuff to mess around with that at least helps the issue, but I don't think solves it completely. But one thing actually that Zach, I don't know how you feel about this, but in terms of like the story and lore and themes and stuff like that, I feel like Dark Souls 1 is a very concise game in its story. Maybe not in the way it's told, obviously, but it's a game very obviously about humanity, and I'd say to a lesser extent about cycles and keeping or breaking status quo and stuff like that. Uh, Whereas with Bloodborne, I'm not really sure if there is an overall theme other than like don't poke at magical shit too hard in Pride, or else it'll fuck you up. Which I guess you could say about a lot of spoiler alert, Lovecraftian stories.
Yeah.
But also along with that, like that wouldn't mind me so much, but I do what I think ended up where that issue I think actually became a solid problem for me. I feel like the characters and NPCs and stuff that you interact with in Bloodborne are less related to the main story in a way that made them less interesting to me. Other than like I like Eileen the Crow a lot. She's one of my favorite Souls NPCs, I think. But like I think about this shit between the Canehurst or like the Vile Blood versus the Executioners, and I look at that entire like little mini arc, and I'm like, that's just completely unrelated to what I'm doing, and like it just kind of feels weird to me.
Um, it's not entirely unrelated, but the relation is kind of buried and vague. Because there's a connection between the Vile Bloods and the Canehurst and the Yarnum blood situation, but they don't go too deep into it.
Yeah, and I know there's like I kind of know like this shit like vaguely I kind of know what that is, but it just felt weird. Like I felt like there's a lack of interconnectivity to not only that but just other stuff where in contrast to like Solaire, where I feel like that's kind of I feel like Solaire's quest and stuff like that is a very I don't want to just keep saying related, but Solaire's quest and how he ends up, I think, is a really good reflection of what Dark Souls is all about. Same with like the father and daughter Onion Knight, just in terms of talking about humanity and going on adventures and stuff like that, and kind of how that changes you as a person and what it means to be a person or what it means to be a hero. And then when I think about stuff like I know I said I like Aline the Crow a lot, but I think about her quest line and I'm like, I'm not really sure story wise at least what that has to really say thematically or anything. And like I think for most people that's not like something they care about, but it was just something I picked up on where it's like I feel like it's a little bit more vague and it kind of made the NPCs less memorable for me in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that stems from the fact that they kind of they went about the Lovecraft thing as sort of like a mid-game plot twist almost,
Yeah.
where a lot of the NPCs and a lot of the mini stories are more related to what you think the game is going to be about in the beginning, and then once you get to what the game's actually about, very few of those stories actually continue going on into that.
Yeah.
Other than the ones that are related to the umbilical cords, where they keep having relevance, but for the most part, it's like they were about the hunt or they went crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of what I was getting into a little bit, but yeah, pretty much. And then also too, I feel weird because on one hand, I do like that the Bloodborne lore is more kind of about it's more character driven and it's more about like these kind of inner politics and like people betraying people and kind of taking ideologies and moving into doing their own sort of thing, and people have all these different motivations for why they want to do their thing. Um, and like I kind of like that a little bit more than just the whole mythic pantheon thing of Dark Souls 1, but I kind of feel like the Dark Souls 1 pantheon thing, maybe just because of the fact that it was a little simpler and more clear cut, was just a more effective story than what Bloodborne's ended up being, but I don't know. I think a lot of that just comes down to personal preference, maybe. But
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see where you're coming from. I really got into the Bloodborne story and where they wound up going. Um, I love Bloodborne, obviously, but I definitely there are a lot of things that Dark Souls did better.
yeah, I also too. I don't want to come off as like I don't like the story. I think it's a good story. I just didn't think it was like it didn't blow me away like Dark Souls 1 did once I finally figured out how it all worked. And like kind of how everything was related and the theories and stuff. And also too, I partially wonder because on very much so on purpose, Bloodborne, there's a lot of more mystery and unexplained things to it, or at least a lot of things that is harder to even make theories about just because it's so vague. Um, and I don't want to spoil too much because a lot of it has to do with the final boss, but just
Yeah.
like stuff like that I think about, and it's like I kind of wish maybe if there's just a little bit more detail, it could have been a little bit better in my eyes. But as it stands now, it has a great air of mystery about it that it's kind of a breath of fresh air. And I mean, maybe it's a good thing that it stands out and it isn't exactly like Dark Souls 1 in terms of how the story is told and stuff like that. So,
I definitely, yeah, there's a few pieces of the puzzle that it's like, I know this fits in here somewhere, but I don't see the connecting piece.
and what's weird too is it feels kind of arbitrary, at least how they left them out, where it's like, yeah, we're just not going to explain that one. And it's like, oh, okay, I
Yeah.
guess.
But at the same time, I get the impression that there is an answer. It's not like they just
Yeah.
said, we'll just whatever. They'll never know." But no, I definitely feel like there's an answer to it. I just personally I have my own theories as to how it works, and I have a theory on how it's all connected, but there's nothing solid there that makes me go like, no, that's definitely what it is.
Yeah, there's a lot less of the solid things, which is a word I never thought I'd say, or a term I never think I'd say. But yeah, there's a lot less ground to stand on for when you make Bloodborne theories, I feel, which is I mean, I guess honestly though, for some people that's probably like heaven to them, you know? Like there's a lot of people that probably have a lot of fun with that. It's just personally, it's like I wish it was a little bit more grounded than what we had, but I'm fine with how it is, I guess.
I really enjoyed it with the theories and stuff. I liked having the mysteries there.
Yeah, it's weird because Dark Souls 1 too, there's a lot of I think people forget sometimes a lot of what people take for canon is actually fan theory stuff too, or
Yeah.
like just implications that people pick up on. And like I think sometimes people forget that, but yeah, like Bloodborne I think just took it a little bit further than I was comfortable with, but overall it's a good story and I liked it a lot. Um, I'm gonna move on to Demon Souls at some point now. It's just that I'm gonna be playing that one with another person, and I'm not allowed to play that one until they're around. So, um, yeah, I'm excited to play it, and then eventually I'll get to Dark 2 and Scholar of the First Sin, and then hopefully I'll have everything beaten before Dark Souls 3 comes out, but probably
You
not.
you've got like 3 to 4 months, so probably not.
Yeah,
Is it that
we'll
soon already?
yeah, it's like it's April.
Wow.
So yeah, that'll be a thing. I'm going to continue on with the Souls thing. Oh, I do want to actually talk a little bit more about Bloodborne. Favorite two bosses of the game were Murgo's Wet Nurse and Shadows of Yharnam. And I feel really weird because usually the most memorable bosses to me, or at least I can't say usually because of the only other one I really played in depth was Dark One, but like in Dark One, I felt like the bosses I struggled with super hardcore were the ones that ended up becoming my favorites. Uh, in this one, the only two yeah, I think the only two bosses on my first run that I beat in one try were Shadows of Yharnam and Murgo's Wet Nurse, and they ended up being my favorites. So I'm not sure if that had anything to do with it, but
Those are good fights. My favorite fights are well, Murder's Wet Nurse, but mostly Lady Maria.
oh, actually, yeah, well, yeah, actually, yeah, I almost forgot. Her and also the second to final boss on the quote unquote true route, I guess you could say, are up there for me too. Actually, you know what? Like Lady Maria is probably my second favorite Souls boss, with Artorias being number one.
Lady Maria is pretty awesome.
She is the best. She feels like she should have been in Metal Gear Rising, you know?
Uh,
Like
my laptop wallpaper is a picture like art. Someone drew fan art of her, and that's my laptop wallpaper right now. That's how much I like that fight.
that is a good ass fight. Like it starts great, and then as you do more damage and she changes forms, it's like, oh my god, this is some straight up anime bullshit right now. I love it.
Yeah.
Like like it almost feels like something that would be in like a I'm forgetting the name, like a Studio Trigger show or some shit like that, you know? Like just with how over the top it is. Um
When I got to like her last phase and I was like saw that they were adding one more thing onto it, I actually like was shouting in real life like I couldn't believe they were going that far with it.
it's pretty breathtaking, yep. Also too, I do want to say that I feel like, and this is kind of moving on, but I do feel like one thing I will give Bloodborne over Dark Souls is Dark Souls kind of like Dark Souls has that thing where as the game goes on, the areas start to get a little less well designed. I think Bloodborne remained pretty damn consistent the whole way through. There was no area that like super pissed me off or like made me like feel like it was poorly designed.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
I think that was the added Sony money, which they can't complain, right? So, but yeah, I got nothing else to talk about with Bloodborne, so we can move on
Are we
to
finally closing the book on Bloodborne for now?
yeah, yeah. You know what? Yeah, let's we're done with Bloodborne talk for a little while at least. After 4 episodes, I think we can close the door on that one. It is a game worth talking about for 4 episodes in a row at least.
Can't
So,
wait till Dark Souls 3.
yep, and then it's gonna be like 10 episodes of Dark Souls 3 back to back. So, everyone be prepared for that. We are finally Souls cast.
Yep.
No, but I guess we can talk about news. We don't have too much to talk about really. The one thing I guess we kind of thought we could weigh in on was Oculus Rift price came out and it's like $600 and a bunch of different VR companies kind of have hinted at prices and stuff. Yeah, VR is expensive. Any thoughts going around? Matt, you haven't talked since we just like splooged about Bloodborne for a shit ton there. Do you have any thoughts about the upcoming VR thing?
I mean, like from what I've seen, it's just like the way VR is right now. It's super early, and so there's just not a ton of stuff. But like that kind of price point with the content you have, like a lot of VR stuff is just like, oh, this is cool. I'll play it for a little bit, and then you move on to the next cool thing you'll play for a little bit, and eventually it's just the novelty of it's gonna wear out. I think until you have like something really substantial, but that kind of stuff doesn't exist as much yet, which makes that price point really hard to justify.
The games are very arcadey as they stand right now,
Yeah.
just because they have to be.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I feel weird because I feel like all of these are kind of targeting more of an enthusiast demographic, with maybe the exception of PlayStation VR. I think is trying to be the most accessible one for like a mainstream audience, but I feel like the technology, excuse me, I feel like the technology might not super be there yet. Like we're closer than we were with shit like the Virtual Boy, but I'm really half and half on if this wave of VR tech, because if you look historically, there's always been people trying to do different VR things and they've all failed. I'm very half and half if this is gonna be the one, um, because I think there's enough push that hey, someone's bound to have at least some sort of success with it, right? But at the same time, you look at least for like the PC ones, the system specs that you need just to run the damn thing, and they're really beefy and really expensive. Like no matter how you cut it, like this is some the average person will not be able to afford this shit. And I think that's gonna hurt it really bad until we get to a point where we can maybe produce this same sort of equipment but a little cheaper. Like I think maybe people are kind of jumping the gun with this VR tech thing.
I
Yeah, for
think,
sure.
yeah, I think the average person's not going to be able to afford it, and as a result of that, the average developer is not really going to use it.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel overall. It's just I have a hard time seeing devs and different people justify getting this sort of thing going. Like I actually, cause VR, as much as like most of it, like most of the focus right now has been for gaming stuff, and at least for the case of PlayStation VR, like it is all gaming stuff. But I mean, at least for the PC ones, I almost wonder if they might have been better off advertising and selling and marketing these things as like business peripherals, because you get a lot of talk about virtual trade shows and different sorts of business applications for this sort of thing that I almost wonder if they would have been better selling these to like bigger businesses and stuff rather than a gaming market. Just because, as much as I want to avoid like video game player stereotypes and shit, I feel like demographically, your average video game player is maybe like college age, like give or take, maybe a little younger, maybe a little older, like. But I don't think most people that play video games like they have enough money to spend on like consoles or like a decent enough PC. I don't think most people that are like heavily invested into video gaming have enough money to buy one of these things at least comfortably. And I think that's going to be what kind of kills it at least for now in the long run.
Yeah. Like this is kind of a sort of shoddy analogy, but like it just reminds me of like the whole new 3DS thing. Like it's a thing that has a bit higher price than people are going to be willing to buy, and not a lot of people are going to buy it. And just because that it has like no support.
Yeah.
I can almost see this, and like it's definitely not a perfect comparison, but like how the PS3 was super damn expensive, and then eventually like it had like a little bit of an audience enough at first to support it, but it wasn't until a couple years had passed where pricing kind of eased a bit. They started to sell it for a little lower prices, and they made different models and stuff, and then it finally kind of took off and became a direct competitor to the 360. But I almost wonder if that's going to be the case for Oculus and stuff like that, where it might start off as too pricey, but it'll have a big enough base to support it, and then later on, as it advances, they can kind of cheapen it a little bit.
Or will PlayStation VR be the next Vita?
Oh no. It has a V in the thing and everything. Oh no.
Why'd you hurt me like that just now?
It actually stands for PlayStation Vita Reality,
Oh gosh.
which is that
I
it's dead.
Thanks. I don't know why I said
Ooh.
that. I'm not the Vita.
Someone's a Vita fan.
I have one, and I wish I could use it more often than I do.
I'll wait for the
Same here.
PlayStation Vita Reality TV, which
Yeah.
I'll get for $30 on Amazon. Like I got this bad boy that I'm petting between my PS2 and PS3. Little PS TV box.
My
Mm.
favorite thing about that thing is that they didn't advertise the Vita like that you could play the Vita games on it at all. It's not on the
Yeah,
box anywhere. I love that so much.
yeah, I noticed that. Well, it's funny because I literally have this thing. Well, actually, yeah, since I have PlayStation Plus, I have some more shit for it now, like Freedom Wars and I think some History Channel game. But uh, yeah, like forever, this I had this thing solely as a PlayStation or solely as a Persona 4 Golden box. Because fuck it, it was worth it to me.
That's why I own a Vita in the first place.
Yeah.
It played a factor in my purchase, I will not lie.
Oh, Sony. Yeah.
But
Do we have any more thoughts on VR?
yeah, I just wanted to say like I wish I could be excited for it.
Same.
Hmm.
I mean, I remember my first like when I first started thinking about VR as a thing was when I got into dot hack and I was like, oh man, that's such a cool idea to have like a headset and see the game through the headset, and it'll be like I'm really there.
It's
And
just
I was
like
like,
my
oh
Japanese animes.
yeah, that'll be a thing in the future, and I got really excited about it. And now that that's like here, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it'll never actually work.
We're too
Well,
jaded and cynical and old.
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Well, I don't have $600 to spend on a thing that might have one good game for it.
I don't either.
Exactly.
Like, I get like a bag of Skittles out of the vending machine, and I'm like, oh, ooh, that was a bad one, you know. So, yeah, I'm not gonna fucking drop 600. Like, 300 is kind of my limit on gaming stuff personally, where it's like beyond that, like even including shipping and tax and all that, my PlayStation 4 purchase came to like 316, and that $16 over was kind of like, I'm pushing my own boundary here. Yeah, like I couldn't justify paying that much for a gaming peripheral, or even they're trying to sell it more as like a platform now, it seems like, but even for that, I could never justify dropping the money for one of these things, at least now.
Yeah.
I just don't have the money or really the emotional investment in one of these things to have it be worth it to me.
They
But
announced a new Dot Hack game. Maybe.
oh boy,
That's the only thing.
yeah. Crap, I had a thought and then I lost. Oh yeah, no. One thing that I kind of haven't seen people talk about really, but I've been kind of fearing in the back of my mind, and I feel like maybe the fear is a little unfounded just because all of the hands-on demos and personal experiences and stuff that people seem to, you know, reflect on and put out for the internet is I've kind of just been wondering like what happens if these things come out and they kind of become the new Wii where they just become home of like shovelware shit that feels super gimmicky.
No, I've been having like some thoughts about that too. Like I feel like it really does have the potential to be that kind of thing.
Because I feel like that, but
But
on the same time, like everything I've heard about where it's like, oh, I thought this would be really gimmicky and dumb, and then I played it and it actually worked and felt amazing. And I'm like, oh, maybe not, but who knows? Maybe it's just that everyone who's been making stuff for it right now has been good. Like, what does a bad VR game look or play like, you know?
I mean, I've used the Oculus Rift.
Oh, wait, what?
Yeah,
Oh, please describe.
it's cool. Um, it's neat. You put it on your head, and you can move your head, and it moves the camera.
And the
But
summer
it,
lesson happens, right?
yes.
Okay.
Um, yeah, no, I used it for like maybe 15 minutes. It was just a very basic tech demo thing where we walked around a field, you know. But it's neat. It's not. I don't see anything being made for it right now that justifies its price.
Yeah.
yeah, I know
It's,
for I know for me, like just the extent of my experience with VR is literally just those crappy free Google Cardboard Star Wars things they did. That's all I know. And gosh, I don't know if the actual Google Cardboard is like better than this, but it's not that great. Like the lenses they come with are really blurry. Like it makes anything you look at look really crappy,
Oh,
which is kind of disappointment. Like I don't know how the actual paid ones are because this is like they mass produced these and gave millions out for free. So
yeah.
and it's just like it's got this weird like almost grain to it. So everything looks like even though if you're like doing something in HD, it looks like it's in like 480p or whatever, 420 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really weird like that.
See, that's the other thing too. For like VR is like you need super hardcore, good-looking shit, or else
Exactly.
it's just gonna take you right out because it's like, oh, this doesn't look as good as real life, you know?
Yeah.
yeah. Honestly, when I think of like exciting things that can be done with VR, I really do think of like I wonder, like I want to see what they can do with like a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea of like virtual theater experiences has been really exciting for me, actually.
And I mean, of course there's the whole thing where like but like a movie, the director is choosing what you see, and if you can move around, that ruins the whole thing. But I mean, I feel like you could just work around that and make it a part of it. Like if you
Yeah.
happen to look in a certain direction, you might see a detail that someone else might not see. You know, it won't just it can't just be movies in VR. It has to be a movie made for VR. But I would like to see that as an experiment, at least.
Yeah, it would be weird if like we had this whole like interactive movie thing become like a thing where it's like interactive in the sense that you can look at whatever, you know?
Mhm.
And it'd be more of like creating a moving environment where shit is happening than like creating a movie, and that would be really interesting to see how they do that. Like
Murder mysteries.
you would almost see like a blend between like video game storytelling and movie cinematography and storytelling, like in this weird blend of like a new medium, and that'd actually be pretty cool to see happen.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I feel like that's not the direction anyone is willing to go with it.
I feel like
Yeah.
I don't think it's possible right now, because like also too when you see a lot of like the VR stuff, I feel like a lot of it goes more so for like a cartoonish or at least kind of like I'm noticing a trend with VR games where a lot of them are not trying to go for like photorealism, like Battlefield 4 or some shit like that looking thing. It's more like, oh, it's all like techno and cell shaded and glowy and stuff like that and simple textures, or more of like a cartoony bent on it where they can, stuff doesn't look realistic per se, but like it looks good.
Mhm.
So I think we're a ways off before we can get stuff like that.
Especially since just like a lot of the stuff you see is like, oh, we hacked this old like Wii or N64 game. Look at it in first person in VR, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think like actually speaking of like the game and cinematography thing though, this is like in Bravely Default there's like a teaser at the end for the second game. And so it's like this interactive cutscene, like you can move around your 3DS and look, but like you're fixed at a certain point, and like this cutscene is happening around you, but like you can there's like you're in this thing and like there's these viewpoints that you can look out of, and you see different parts of the cutscenes happening, and it's all in real time, and it's a really cool idea because you can just move around like you're just holding your 3DS. It's kind of dopey, but
Yeah.
it's really cool the way they did that, and you don't have to look at the action that's happening. You can look somewhere else if you want, and I feel like that's the kind of thing I would like to see VR do, but I just don't think it's something that they would do.
Yeah. So any more VR thoughts, or are we pretty good on that?
It makes me think of the Connect.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That
That's
was
all.
a that was a great working piece of equipment, that Connect. Um,
I hear the new Connect is better, but no one cares at this point.
yeah.
Yeah, no one's making games for it anymore.
Yeah.
I never thought about that. Or I never thought about the new Connect, but it yeah, there's no really any games that are coming out for that thing anymore, huh?
No, and then the Xbox One doesn't come with it anymore.
Yep, that's true.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So
Well,
that went somewhere.
so you know what isn't dead?
What?
Star Wars.
Oh no.
Now this is podcasting. All right, so a little movie came out recently called Star Wars: The Holiday Special.
Yeah.
Now in it, Chewie and his family celebrate Life Day. Then Kylo Ren comes in and fucks up everyone's day, and it's things happen. It's a very exciting movie. Anakin Skywalker comes back, and things happen, and there's a dance number done in CGI, and it's just great. And Greedo shoots first and everything. No, so yeah,
Can you
Force
spoil
Awakens.
it?
This is everything I need from a Star Wars movie.
Yep. But yeah, Force Awakens came out, and it was pretty damn good, and I think all of us have seen it. So, uh, I guess going around, like, how big of Star Wars fans are you guys on a scale from like I just watched the movies to like I know all about Skippy the Jedi droid and what he's done to the expanded universe? Um, because I mean, personally, like I watched the movies as a kid, was like always kind of a fan, and like I played a decent number of the games, and I like just as a kid when it's like, oh, you're in school and they want you to be reading something at all times, like elementary and like middle school and stuff. I picked up a few of the, you know, kids books then and stuff like that, and I don't remember much about them. I think Qui-Gon fought some like Dark Padawan who like had like a weird ring burn scar thing on his face, and that's all I really remember. Um, but like, yeah, how super into Star Wars lore are you guys?
I think for me, like I grew up on this, so like I love it in that sense, but I haven't gone too deep into like the expanded universe stuff. Like I read some of the books when I was younger, but other than that, not that much. It's just there's so much of it, and
Most of it's bad from what I hear.
is it? I just find it like really hard to get into stuff like that or Marvel comics when there's just so much stuff. I
I
don't know
have
where
the
to
same
go.
problem with
Yeah.
continuity stuff. Even though people are like, "Oh, well, it's just side references and stuff." It's like, but I feel bad because I feel like if I don't know it all, that I'm missing out, and that like that's like a gripe that I have with uh, comic book stuff, and also kind of like things with large expanded universes.
Yeah, I have the same problem exactly.
What about you, Zach?
Well, like
You,
most people,
do you have a
I
Dexter Jetster tattoo?
I don't, unfortunately.
So you're not
Um,
a real fan.
Yeah,
I'm
not
not a real
not like
fan.
us.
I grew up on the movies. When I was very very young, I got the trilogy on VHS and I watched them like every night. As far as the expanded universe stuff goes, I didn't really get too much into it. I played Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's kind of as far as I went with that. But
That's
so
all
yeah,
you
for
need.
me, yeah, for me it was really just the movies and Knights of the Old Republic. But I really really like those movies.
It's some good shit. So yeah, I don't think any of us are like super hardcore into it because like I know some people it's like can explain the entire history of the Jedi and Sith conflict in great detail and like get super hardcore into the nitty-gritty, and yeah, I don't think any of us could ever do that. Um
I mean, most of that stuff's not canon anymore anyway. So
yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
that's true.
They have like 20 canon books now by this point, which blows my fucking mind how you can do that in the span of like a year and a half to 2 years. Like holy shit, they're going hardcore on making that new expanded universe a thing.
I had a brief moment where I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna try to get into that, and then I looked how much of it there already was, and I went, nope, never mind.
And then I read shit about how there's a Darth Vader comic book series ongoing now that takes place between episodes 3 and 4, and they gave him a silver R2D2 and silver C3PO, and they're both like torture robot droids.
Oh no.
That sounds really, really.
Yeah, and I'm
No.
like, I'm glad to see it's following in the footsteps of the previous one in terms of quality. Um, because
Can't wait till they clone Palpatine.
oh yeah, you know his first name?
It's like Sheev or something.
Yeah, it's Sheev. In the new canon, Palpy's first name is Sheev.
Oh, good.
Sheev. So
Just what I always imagined.
yeah, this so yeah, that's the thing. No, but like, I think just from like a casual fan perspective, like Force Awakens is everything you'd want out of a Star Wars movie. Just like it's just a damn solid movie. It's fun. It's weird in the sense that it's probably the first movie I can really remember where just going into it and not even being spoiled, just getting everything I expected out of a movie. And I've never really had that experience before. It's like this is what I expect this movie to do, or at least what I want and expect it to do. And it just is like, yep, literally everything. Just ran down the list of expectations and checked them off, and I'm like, oh, okay. I got nothing to complain about here, and just walked out happy. So I don't know how'd you guys feel about it.
No, I pretty much agree with that. Like, I was really excited for it because it's been 10 years and we got Revenge of the Sith last time, so
Yeah.
I mean, should we talk about how we feel about the prequels? I mean, I don't really think much needs to be said, but
Yeah, they're bad.
yeah.
they're not good.
From my point of view, the original trilogy is bad.
You're lost.
Good one.
Thanks. Dialogue.
We George Lucas all over this podcast.
Oh, okay, hold on. I'm small little mini tangent. Have you guys ever seen Backstroke of the West?
No.
No.
Um, So it was like a Chinese bootleg that had really bad subtitles for Revenge of the Sith, and then
Oh, was that the
yeah,
one that
yeah.
says the do
But
not
then
Oh,
want?
I need to
there
watch
was
this.
a dub of it. Someone like fan dubbed the whole script in the actual movie, and it's one of my favorite things. It has some of the best dialogue.
I
You
need to
guys
s-
like
I need to
when
see
people are
that.
done. Yeah, look it up. It's pretty
Oh, I
good.
need this.
It's a little bit harder to find now because it was on YouTube and then it got taken down, but
Oh,
you can still find it.
that's the do not want one, right?
Yes, that is where the
Okay.
"do not want" meme came from.
Okay.
But
Oh,
if you
okay.
can find the version where all the dialogue is dubbed, it's worth watching that movie again with that.
I should say there is a fan edit of the prequels that combine them into one movie that okay, so this is my viewpoint on the prequels. Phantom Menace is a 0 out of 10 like shit movie. Attack of the Clones I actually think is a even worse 0 out of 10 shit movie, which I know most people are like, "Oh, Phantom Menace is the worst one." I personally, I think Attack of the Clones is unset. There was nothing in that movie I liked. One has the At least one has the Darth Maul fight where it's like that's some good choreographed fight thing at the end that it sucks, but I mean the actual fight choreography is great there at least. So that's like a point one, on the scale. Whereas Attack of the Clones is just like, oh god, there's nothing in this that's entertaining. And then three kind of was like an improvement, but still not good. Actually, there's a bunch of like movie reviewers that I follow on YouTube. They're called What the Flick, and they decided to just review every Star Wars movie. And someone on there made a good point about Revenge of the Sith, and they said if it wasn't a prequel trilogy and you reworked Revenge of the Sith to be like just kind of stand more on its own, people probably wouldn't have been as harsh on the prequels as like we wouldn't have as bad of memories of the prequels as we do now just because Revenge of the Sith is like it's not good, but it's not as horribly offensive as 1 and 2 is. Like it's better, just not at a point to be called good.
There's things in it that are entertaining, not necessarily intentionally so,
Yeah.
but like the Emperor is fun.
No,
It,
no, no.
Yeah,
kill it.
Kill him. Do it.
yeah.
Uh, yeah.
I don't know. I feel completely opposite because, like, they're all bad movies for sure. But
Yeah.
I feel like Revenge of the Sith is just that's the only movie they had where anything mattered and they still screwed it up.
That's
That's
true.
kind of why I hate it more.
Or I could see that.
Like Attack of the Clone, like it's a bad movie, but nothing really matters.
Yeah.
Nothing matters.
No, but then you have like Revenge of the Sith and the younglings and the
Yeah.
Wookiees for 2 seconds. Oh my gosh, Chewbacca's freaking cameo.
You want to know
God.
some bullshit? So I was looking at some expanded universe shit in my free time. Did you know that Chewbacca was one of the founding fathers of the Kashyyyk planet for the Wookiees?
How old is
Apparently.
he?
I don't fucking know. Apparently that colony ain't too old because it's like, oh yeah, Chewbacca helped found that city or some shit. And I'm like, God,
Of course
fuck
he did.
everything.
Of course, he helped found the city of an entire civilization and then went and joined Han Solo to smuggle
Yep,
things.
yep, yep. After the Empire took over, shit hit the fan real bad. Um, oh God, no, those prequels are bad. But there is a movie that kind of it's called well, there's one movie called The Phantom Edit, and that was a fan edit of the first movie that like removed Jar Jar and some other shit. But I mean, it's still the Phantom Menace, so it's still bad. Um, but there's a fan edit that's been going around called a Phantom Edit, and it takes 1, 2, and 3 and combines them into one movie. And like it takes all of the movies and combines them into like a 4 out of 10 experience, which is pretty damn impressive that it does that just through the power of editing alone. That being said, you still have the problem with all of the acting being pretty bad.
The
So,
dialogue.
yeah.
I tried to watch the Phantom Edit, and I was like, all right, you know what? All right, I'll watch this edit of all these movies together. And like 10 minutes in, I remembered how bad the dialogue was, and I just
Yeah.
closed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I wish it salvaged it, but it's like no, it's too broken. It's too bad. Like it does some cool things. Like one of the problems with the prequels is that everything to do with Obi-Wan doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Everything that that entire shit with Grievous that was just in there to sell toys and shit like that. Same with like, oh, let's go investigate Jango Fettland and see the clones. Like none of that actually matters to like Anakin becoming Darth Vader. So what this does is it just focuses on Anakin. Well, actually, uh, the only part of one that is in this is the fight with Darth Maul, and then Qui-Gon going train the boy, and Obi-Wan's like okay, and then it cuts to two right away, and then it takes all of the scenes involving Anakin from two and three and then also like removes the shit with Darth Vader going no and all this other shit at the end where it literally just cuts to like Anakin being put into the suit and then like cut to black and then like noises and then just cuts to credits and it's like okay that's a lot better way of editing it and it does prove like it goes to show like editing can seriously help something but at the same time if the source material is bad no editor could save or salvage that, you know. So it's really it was like an interesting thing to watch just from like a cinema perspective and it's like, oh, you can do some stuff to make these slightly more watchable, but it yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Anyways, enough shitting on the prequels.
Yeah, Force Awakens is pretty good.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it mostly avoids the prequels, which is great. Like there's the one thing that I could think of is when they're talking to Force sensitive, I'm no Jedi, but I'm not a Sith either lady in the bar. And she's like, I've seen many evils across the history of the galaxy, like the Empire and the Sith, and I feel like that second and the Sith part or whatever is kind of hinting at like, oh yeah, the prequel stuff, haha. And I'm like, oh, ooh, but I
Yeah,
mean,
that's like the only mention it gets.
yeah, and even
Yeah.
that is vague enough where it could be like, oh well,
Maybe she's really old.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
well, yeah, she's at least 1,000 years old.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, oh, that could
Maybe,
just be
maybe
referencing
she's
other
Oh.
shit.
maybe she remembers Knights of the Old Republic.
hmm Fun fact. So Knights of the Old Republic might still be canon actually because one of the planets from that game is officially still in canon. Like Tython or whatever. They have that in like one of the books or something.
It's enough for me.
Yep, so maybe KOTOR is still canon, which would be great. Man, fucking Kylo Ren was like not the character, but like the mask. Damn, that was Darth Raven inspired. Like, fuck you if you
Yeah.
say otherwise, you know, like
Oh
that
no, it definitely was.
that was super KOTOR inspired, and that I love that. Um, I guess if we want to talk about stuff and go a bit more into spoilers, so if you somehow haven't seen The Force Awakens yet and you care about spoilers, first of all, what are you doing? Second of all, yeah, you can, I guess, bye. But yeah, I think the first thing that really stuck out to me with the movie was well, there's the opening line, which is a direct fuck you to the prequels. That is just this will make things right,
Yeah.
which is like, oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. Um, no, but I think that first scene where like you see the shit with Kylo Ren, and it's like, they're just doing Darth Vader again. I mean, I guess you know from the marketing and all that, but I thought there'd be something more. And then he has the first temper tantrum, and you're like, yo, I'm so in.
Yeah.
Um, God, I think Kylo Ren and Finn kind of like of all the new characters are the two that stuck out to me of like I was really in love with what they did with them. Poe was cool, it's just that he wasn't in the movie for very long. And I feel like they didn't flesh out Rey, but that's because they have, you know, episodes 8 and 9 in mind and we're going to get more Rey stuff in those. So, like I wasn't like, you know, offended by it or anything. So,
Yeah, I mean, she's as developed as Luke was at the end of the first movie.
exactly.
I feel like with
I
the
mean, I thought she was really cool. I liked her a lot.
And also,
Oh yeah.
in the same sense too, when you watch Just a New Hope, you're like, boy, Ben and Han are so much cooler than Luke, just because you know Luke is just the tag along kid that is the hero, you know, like
Mhm.
he's not as interesting until Empire. So And it also too recently I think John Boyega came out and said that episode 8 is going to be a lot darker. So it's probably going to be the Empire of the sequel trilogy, which I mean I guess we all probably could have guessed by now, but
Yeah.
it's kind of even more confirmation of that. So I'm really excited to see how Ray is handled in that. Should be exciting.
Yeah, especially like I wonder if they're gonna keep Luke at like a because we're going full spoilers, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if they're gonna keep Luke as like a like I wonder if he's gonna be like oh main character status like Han was in this movie, or if he's gonna just kind of be there at the beginning and the end.
So I feel like in the same way. Okay, so everything about 8 or everything in 7 was kind of like it kind of felt like they were doing A New Hope, but they were twisting around stuff. Like Kylo Ren is Darth Vader, but like an emo kid. Um, Rey is like Luke, but just, different stuff. And Poe and Finn kind of occupy the Han role, sort of. But it's weird because Han is still there, but they're kind of like the piloty soldier people. But I don't know, it's weird. Um, but then, like, you get shit like Han now is almost the Ben of episode 7.
Oh
And
yeah,
and that's
Yeah.
great because he starts A New Hope being like all this like old religion bullshit is just stupid. And now like he's full around on it and like yeah, the force is real and like all this shit happened and it's crazy stuff and like he's a lot more wise and kind of takes that old mentor approach, which is just really fun to see because that was in like complete contrast to where he started out, and that was a nice way to end his story arc, I feel. So, what actually, leading on to it, I kind of feel like for episode 8, my guess is that they're going to take Luke in that Yoda, like that Yoda role from Empire, and kind of twist it around. And personally, what I'm feeling, because the implication is that Luke is on that one island because he kind of felt bad and like kind of maybe even depressed after Kylo Ren betrayed him and killed all of his other students and shit. So what I'm almost wondering if he's going to be kind of like a Yoda that just isn't as confident in himself or something like that.
Hmm.
That'd
yeah.
be kind of cool to see.
There was that one like almost a throwaway line where they said he was looking for the first Jedi temple, and I
Yeah,
feel like maybe there
Yeah.
was more to it than he was just depressed about what happened, but we have no idea.
yeah. No, I
I think.
feel like yeah, that planet is where the first Jedi temple is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but like why would he go there?
yeah,
That's what I'm wondering too.
Why not just go to like Dagobah?
yeah, cause I was thinking to like just meditate. So my thought on it was like maybe he felt like he failed as a Jedi Master just cause like his training was not very like I mean he was under Ben for a little bit, then Ben died. He was under Yoda for a little bit, then Yoda died. So like I almost wonder if he was like I need to go meditate at like the origin point, just so like I finally kind of get this thing more, maybe. But yeah, who knows? Maybe there's like a plot thread with that we just don't know yet.
Yeah.
Were you gonna say something before, Matt?
No, you got it. But
Oh, okay.
like in addition to that, though, at the same time, I feel like that almost goes backwards, sort of, from his character, in like Empire and Return of the Jedi, because I feel like by then he's supposed to be like a fully fledged Jedi, like he's confident what he can do now, like he's sort of resisted the dark side and everything, so like he's a Jedi Master now. But then, with like this, it's weird because it doesn't seem like he would just leave and like, oh, just give time for the First Order to rise and they're basically the Empire again. Like it doesn't seem like he'd let that happen, but he kind of does.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we need to know more about like because I feel like the vision Rey gets when she touches his lightsaber definitely showed flashes of the that like when Kylo Ren betrayed Luke and everything.
Yeah, like the whole Knights
Yeah.
of Ren slaughtering all the Padawans and shit.
Yeah, I feel like we got flashes of that, but like I feel like we need to know a little bit more about what actually happened that night as to maybe know
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I mean it's also it's not like Luke just lost Padawan. He lost his, a
Entire
relative.
school.
Exactly.
Or
Well,
that
also a
too.
relative,
Yeah.
yeah. A relative turned to the dark side and felt just like his father did.
'Cause I mean, man, too, imagine speaking to Han and Leia after that happened too, and having to fess up to that.
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
even if it's not his fault, because it's obvious Snoke was like fucking around and doing shit with Ben too, but like it's very obvious he probably feels at least a little bit of responsibility for that, which
I
is
mean, that's all on his face in that last shot.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um.
so yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know what else to talk about. I mean, um,
Do you guys have any guesses as to what Rey's story is?
oh, she's not a Skywalker.
No. I think the most obvious answer is that she was a very young child at Luke's Padawan school,
Oh,
and
really?
that they hid her. That's what I think is the. That's what I think would be my best guess. I don't necessarily think that's what's going to happen, but I would guess that they hid her there and that's why she got flashes of it
You
because she
know,
was actually there.
until a couple days ago, I was like, yeah, she's definitely a Skywalker. But I almost feel like that's too obvious now. And like, I almost am wondering, it's like maybe she actually isn't related. So I don't know. I'm really conflicted on
Yeah.
it because it's like I feel like if she was related to Luke, maybe they would have just outright said it. Because I mean, at least for like Kylo Ren, they're just like, oh yeah, Ben Solo. And he's like, yep, that's my name. And it's like, oh, okay. So I kind of feel like maybe it'd be weird, unless they just want to do it for the sake of having the Empire callback, where it's like, Skywalker family reveal in the second part of the trilogy. But
The only thing that's weird, and it's this. I thought she would be a Skywalker up until the part where she says she thought Luke was a myth,
yeah, that's
and
kind of weird.
that's kind of thrown a wrench in a lot of people's, I guess, pre-movie theories.
Well, I think like with that, because she obviously like has really screwy memory, so I feel like that could
Yeah.
be kind of explained away if they needed it to. But even then, I feel like because Force Awakens was really predictable after a certain
Yeah,
point, so I feel like maybe they'd just do the same thing and make her a Skywalker. I don't know what they're gonna do, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they did, because it would be just as predictable as Force Awakens.
I wouldn't be surprised, but at this point, I don't want to say I hope they go a different direction, but it'd be interesting to see them actually surprise us with something.
I would
Yeah.
actually kind of like it, because also too, like, I think there's something to be said about having someone who just kind of starts from nothing. It like I kind of find the idea more interesting of her literally just being like a Padawan, like you said, if she's just some random Padawan that they left there who's like somehow
Yeah,
survived shit
like
going
yeah,
bad.
she was like the youngest child that survived or something.
Um, I like that idea, if not just because I don't know. This kind of goes back actually to a Kaneko quote actually from when he was making Mega 10-1 where he's like, I kind of hate the idea that like from like Dragon Quest 1 or like the Dragon Quest series and stuff, it's like, oh, you're the chosen hero because you're from this chosen family line. It's like this is kind of bullshit because that kind of indirectly implies that it's like if you're just some normal person, you can't be a hero. And I think that is kind of like I think there is some truth to that in Star Wars where it's like, yeah, if you're not a Skywalker, you're not going to have an overarching huge impact in the grand scheme of things. And it's like it'd be nice if it's just this random kid who grew up and she's just really good with the Force and she becomes a hero through hard work. Like that'd be much appreciated on my half at least.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like the fact that they built up her background as a mystery, though, I don't think that's where they're gonna go with it.
Yeah, I feel like it's just easier to do the Skywalker thing.
Yeah.
Who's the mom? R2D2.
Oh no.
She's actually the daughter of Jar Jar.
It all ties into the whole Reddit Sith theory.
Yep, exactly. You, oh my God! Also, the fucking. Do you think Snoke is Darth Plagueis maneuver? It's like, yeah,
Uh,
What was even the basis for that?
Nothing.
yeah, yeah, pretty much nothing.
Literally, he's got a weird face, and maybe Plagueis had a weird face.
Yeah. To be completely honest, they're not gonna bring anything from the prequels. I'd be
But
shocked if they did. Like,
They're not stupid.
yeah.
people like now, like he's the metachlorian guy now. They're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if just halfway through Force Awakens they're like, "All right, Ray, what's your midichlorian count?"
We need to see if you're for realsies. And it's like, oh, it's like too many Chlorians over Kylo Ren, and Kylo Ren gets all pissy about it.
Yeah, that totally would have worked.
Yeah, I think Kylo Ren's my favorite character, if only because like that whole like emo temper tantrum
Yeah.
thing just completely took me off guard. And like the fact that he's a creepy Darth Vader fanboy is kind of almost like this weird commentary on creepy obsessive Star Wars fanboys. And how like it's kind of fucked up to be like Darth Vader. Like if you want to be like Darth Vader, you kind of miss the point of the whole Darth Vader story arc.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But people still want to do it anyways because he's cool and badass and dark and stuff, and that's kind of what they're doing with his character, and I find that super interesting. Also,
I, I
I
am.
I'll carry on.
I was gonna say I'm so glad they didn't just try to make him as cool as Darth Vader. You
Yeah.
know?
No, they made him pathetic, and that's the best.
Yeah,
Also, too, I
Yeah.
love the idea of like, oh, the light side is tempting me, because you never get that in anything ever. You always get people being tempted by evil. No, like, good never gives a fuck. Like, there's never any like persuasion on the part of good or like temptation stuff going on. It's always like, oh, I decided that doing the good thing was actually like the best thing to do. Like, people aren't tempted by good. So I
Yeah.
think that's a really neat idea to play around with too. Just kind of flip that on its head.
yeah,
I think just one thing I love about like his character so much is like all the Sith you have in the movies, like Darth Vader super composed and menacing, the Emperor's like crazy and like but he's also really powerful. But like Kylo Ren, he's like weak and he's angry, and they always like, oh, the dark side, anger, emotion, but like you don't really get any of that until now, and I think that's really cool how they're actually showing that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the only other thing I can think of to talk about is I think a common criticism was people were like, "Oh, it's just a New Hope again," but I feel like they played around with stuff enough that I actually felt like it stood pretty well on its own. Like it's very obvious that it's not completely original, because like it is a large part of it is playing around with tropes and common things that you're familiar with, but I feel like I feel like this one played it safe, if only because they had to. It's the first part of a new Star Wars trilogy, like you need to kind of play it safe on that one.
it was the right choice for this movie.
Exactly. And I feel like as it goes on, we're going to get a little bit more of it being its own thing. But as it stands now, like I felt like they deviated enough and did enough like they took a lot of familiar things and turned it on its head, and I think for me personally it was enough where I'm like, this is a completely separate movie than A New Hope. Like this stands out well on its own. And actually one thing that I like to bring up to people that are like, oh, it's just A New Hope again. A New Hope does not have an equivalent scene to like that I always that planet that just apparently has a bunch of force and a bar on it and nothing else?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know that fight scene that occurs on there? There is no equivalent to that scene in A New Hope.
Well, even I mean, you're right, but people would also say that like I mean, going beyond A New Hope, there's just a lot of Force Awakens. It's just going back to the original trilogy as a whole,
Yeah.
to the point where like the main three planets that you visit in the Force Awakens is a desert planet, a forest planet, and a snow planet, and those are kind of the three main planets of the original trilogy, one per movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, overall, it they do enough with it to where it's not. It doesn't feel like a rehash. It feels like it's acknowledging the original trilogy enough.
It's like a reimagining kind of.
Yeah.
Not excessively so, but like it's still there that you can definitely see like where they got what.
And I feel like too another thing I actually really appreciated, and I just reminded, like this is a good movie, I think, because I mean, I think every like we're kind of reaching a generation where other than like kids know that it's a cartoon on TV, like not a generation that just doesn't know about Star Wars because like they're got to be exposed somehow to like the media juggernaut that it is and stuff like that. But you know, like we grew up at least for better or for worse with the prequels kind of being the thing when we were younger, you know? And like people before us kind of grew up with the original trilogy being a thing, and now like kids nowadays will grow up with like this being a thing, and I think that's pretty neat. Like
Mhm.
it's a good thing for the new generation, and I'm happy that they're getting something better than we got stuck with.
Yeah.
So, God, I still remember like as a kid watching the prequels and liking them and shit, and then like, you know, you get a little bit older, you kind of start to browse the internet more, and you realize like, oh, yeah, people say these are bad movies, and I'm like, yeah, I guess they're bad. I don't remember them being that bad though. And then you go with your friends to see Phantom Menace 3D, which is being re-released in theaters. Then you walk out of the theater going like, holy shit, my childhood was a fucking lie. Damn. Because I hadn't rewatched those fucking movies since I was like 7. And I fucking, like, I saw that one and I'm like, wow, those are that bad. Ooh, the internet did not lie to me.
I still can't believe they re-released Phantom Menace. Like,
They wanted to re-release all of them in 3D for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know. Actually, I do remember the reason I saw it. My friend was like, "You want to go see a movie?" And like, there's nothing out, and it's like, go see Phantom Menace in 3D. And then we both had the conversation of like, oh yeah, like I've heard the prequels are like bad and stuff, but like the last, like I don't know, I liked them when I was a kid, and it's like, yeah. Then we both walk out of the movie, and it was like, wow, that was awful. Good times,
I
good
think it just
times.
really goes to show like how much George Lucas didn't get it that he was like, "Oh, we're gonna release the Star Wars movies in 3D, starting with the prequels."
Yep,
yep.
Oh, you just don't get it.
yep.
That's
Also, too, every single time he's interviewed, it's like, how should you watch these? He's like, oh, you gotta watch them episode one, starting with episode one and ending with
oof.
episode six, and it's
hmm
like, you put
Mm-mm.
things in the prequels that are direct callbacks that don't make sense unless you've seen four, five, and six first.
Yeah. Or just like straight up ruin 4, 5, and 6 if you watch them in order, like
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
chronological.
Yeah, the stormtroopers are a lot less cooler
Yeah.
if you see the prequels for one.
yeah.
Also, the
And
fact that the
Boba
Emperor
Fett too.
Boba Fett as well. The fact
Oh,
that the Emperor isn't just old, he just got lightnings to be
God,
ugly.
I hate that.
Which I never got that because no one else that gets hit by lightning has that happen to their body. It's
No,
just him.
you don't understand. They had to make him look like the Emperor, so you know that this is when he becomes the Emperor.
Mm. I just thought he was really old.
Yeah, same. But apparently not. Nope, he got hit by lightning. Except, you know what fucking, you know what you should fucking do in the next special edition? You gotta make it so that when Luke gets hit by lightning at the end of six, he just gets all ugly and old and shit.
It's also, apparently putting on the mask instantly made Anakin's voice become James Earl Jones.
Yes.
It
It's weird,
wasn't
it's weird how
that he got
technology
older,
works.
deeper voice. It's just, oh, that mask is just what the mask sounds like.
hmm You know that one Darth Vader quote that's super iconic? You know the one, yippee? Yep,
Yeah,
that's what Darth Vader says.
it's my favorite Darth
Spinning
Vader.
is a good trick.
Um,
I want there the special edition for him to be fighting like Ben and then like fighting a New Hope, and he just goes, "Spinning is a new trick."
Oh my gosh, I saw this video. It was kind of stupid, but it had some good moments. It was just young Anakin dubbed over like Darth Vader scenes from A New Hope.
Yes.
So, and at the end, like when he's spinning out, his spinning is a good trick, and I just lost it.
Uh,
oh man.
I also really just like the idea that some little kid with autopilot and he hits some buttons on the thing is more effective of a fighter pilot than trained military personnel.
But you don't understand. He's the chosen one.
Yes, he is. Oh, fuck.
They said Rey was a Mary Sue character because she goes a good pilot.
Oh, yeah. And fuck those people.
It's such a stupid.
Yeah.
What? You're telling me a main Star Wars character is a good pilot even though they shouldn't be? No
Yeah.
way, that's never been done before.
Just all that pilot training Luke had. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. He had that line where he said, "I'm not such a bad pilot myself." Oh, okay.
The only thing that bothered me about Ray is I wish we at least had gotten one line about the mind trick thing because and like I'm not even saying like oh it was the Mary Sue thing, but like you know that scene where she just does the mind trick on Daniel Craig's Stormtrooper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh I felt like that was like just watching I'm like, "Oh, she can do that, I guess. Okay." And like it just felt weird cuz like there was no build up, which I guess I mean makes the scene like a surprise, but I just felt like it was weird cuz I just kind of like I don't know, because the only time you ever really see that in the other movies is like an older, more experienced person doing it. So you kind of like, I don't know, I never thought that was just something that anyone could do. So it just happened, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's weird, but
It's
okay.
I
it's really
mean,
weird too. Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Oh no, I just think it's really weird too because how does she know that exists?
Yeah, that was kind of what like, because like I've heard people say like, oh, she probably heard stories about it, and I'm like, but I mean, like I've heard stories of people like flying a plane, but I don't fucking know how to fly a plane. Like, I don't know. Like, do you just kind of reflex it out? Like, can you just kind of guess how it works? Like, I mean, she fails the first couple times, so it's obvious she doesn't
Yeah, I
fully
guess
know how
there's
to do
that.
it. But it was just kind of weird how it's like, oh, she did the thing. Okay.
Third time's a charm.
Yeah.
I feel like what they were trying to go for was that she's just sort of awakening to these powers, and she doesn't really get where they're coming from or know why she can do these things. She just knows that she can do
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe if in the next movie they go a little bit, maybe when they talk about her past, they go into like maybe showing that she did see this stuff happen.
Yep.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
could
I
believe
could buy
that.
into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, like if they don't go into that, then there should have been a scene where she like at least ask Han Solo like, was the Jedi mind trick a real thing or something like that.
Yeah, because it was just kind of like
Yeah.
weird how it just kind of happened, and I was like, I wasn't like mad about it or anything. I was just like, that's just kind of weird, but it was fine.
Yes. Same here. Because like right before that, you have her like in the forest with Kylo Ren, and she's just like losing completely. Like he's just freezing her with the Force or whatever, putting her to sleep or whatever he did.
Yeah.
And then like 10 minutes later, she's fighting him off, completely reading his mind, like protecting her mind. Like where what happened? Like there's just no progression of that. It's really weird.
Yeah, it was really that didn't bother me so much, but like I could see why people like the Mary Sue thing's weird because I feel like it's like okay, they could have maybe explained some things better, but also too people are like, "Oh, she's just too perfect at everything." It's like, "No, she's clearly like
Oh
struggling and
yeah.
shit, too." It's weird.
Yeah.
I feel like the thing is we're gonna get a lot more explanation as to everything, like Zach said, like in the next movie and stuff, where we learn more about her backstory and like I would like even if they say a thing like, "Oh, you're really powerful with the Force. It's just that you haven't been trained to wield it properly yet." I would super be down and believe in that.
Yeah. Me too.
Like if they do a thing where it's like she's just has the natural talent, she needs like to understand it better. That'd be interesting.
She's the other chosen one.
Yeah.
She's the chosener one.
Oh, Ray. I'm really happy to see like that the movie is done as well as it has. Like I mean, I think everyone knew no matter how critically it would do that this would be like the best-selling movie ever. Um and yeah, it's just blown away records, but it turned out good and it deserves the recognition and shit and like it was probably my favorite movie of 2015, but like I'm not gonna lie, part of that is just because Star Wars meant a lot to me as a kid, and just being in that theater and being like I can feel like a kid again was
Yeah, I
really
mean
fun.
it's so exciting to actually be able to be excited about Star Wars again.
I know, like it
Oh
feels
yeah.
great because like that's not a feeling we've had for a while.
It's not a
Mm-mm.
feeling I had since I was a little kid,
Yep,
Yep.
and a little bit with KOTOR, but even I was still a kid when I played KOTOR.
yep,
Yeah.
same.
I think it's just so weird because like going into that theater, like normally in movies, like I hate when people like clap or just like go whoa or whatever. But just seeing that, it's like it was such a cool experience because you see like these little kids, these older people, these like people my age or whatever, and like they're all really into it. They all love the same thing, and
Yep.
like freaking when Han Solo and Chewbacca show up, they're like all clapping, and I'm like, normally I would hate this, but this is really cool. Like I get
Yeah.
how they feel. Like this
Yeah.
is awesome.
That like the big reactions in my theater were uh, okay, so like I can think of the BB-8 lighter thumbs up,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
huge applause. That was the best. Um, the God was yeah when Han first shows up, people like clapped a little bit to that. Um, that's not how the Force works. It was like fucking like people died. I
Oh
died.
yeah.
That was my like favorite like comedy bit in that movie, just because it's like that line almost seems not Star Wars with how like comedic it is. It's just like that's not how the Force works. Like it almost feels like it would be off like a parody or something. I loved that. Um, and then also when Han actually died, like you could hear a pin drop in the theater, which
Yeah.
like people were like, so that was yeah, like the audience was a huge part of that, and I'm so happy I saw that in the theaters. Like, holy shit, that was great.
I feel like I'm the only one that had any reaction to when C3PO pops up.
Oh,
Um, but I thought it was really funny and cute because he pops up and his introduction in the movie is interrupting Han and Leia scene,
yeah,
which
that's
is
pretty
what he
great.
Yeah, I love
did
that.
in Empire. I thought it was really funny, and no one else did. I've seen the movie 3 times now, and that scene did not get a reaction in any of them.
Oh,
Like, I thought it was cute, but all right, I'll be over here.
and then you laugh, and then some guy in the back goes, "It's because he has a venom snake arm, right?"
Mm, punish C3PO.
Yes.
I feel like just seeing him in any scene, the Venom Snake thing made that funnier just a little bit.
Yeah, it was. That is such a great coincidence
Mhm.
because there's no fucking way that was intentional.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
I I love the post like with the picture of Big Boss or Venom Snake whatever, and he's just like, "It's me, Big Boss. You probably didn't recognize me because of the red arm." I love that so much.
it's
I
really
hadn't seen
good.
that.
Uh, yep. Force Awakens is good.
It's a good movie.
I feel like we don't even need to go into emails just because like we've gone on for over 2 hours now, and yeah, I think we can call it a podcast.
All right.
My voice is
All
kind
right.
of dying too. Rip. So yeah, Matt, if you want to plug anything like Twitter or anything else you want to just plug, go ahead.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at the Genius Arcana, and I guess gosh, what is the username? Me and a couple other friends are doing starting a podcast at least, the Amala Network podcast at. I want to say the at is Amala Network Pod, something like that. I don't know.
I'll link to them below so people
Thanks.
will be able to follow those. But yeah, Zach, you looking forward to anything or want to plug something
Uh, nah,
other
I'm on.
than this podcast?
Yeah, I'm on a podcast called We Are Finally Podcast. It's pretty alright, I think. If you guys want to give that a check out.
Never heard of it.
Same.
Alright. Also, I mean, I'm on Twitter. If anyone wants to follow me, I talk about things, but only sometimes. It's good.
I am doing the thing you're all listening to right now, and there's a few videos I have coming on the way that I have scripts for. Well, I have a lot to say about Final Fantasy 3. More to say about Final Fantasy 3 than anyone probably does. And because I'm a asshole and I feel like my opinion matters, I'm gonna make a video about it. And also, I'm still working on a video talking about the interplay between a game's gameplay and combat and the narrative. So look forward to that. That one is probably going to be out sooner than the Final Fantasy 3 one, just because I have more progress on it. So, yep, I'm still doing YouTube things, guys. I promise.
Kawashitai.
君を呼ぶ旋律はこの